All right, we're live.
Awesome.
So, I'm in Amsterdam.
You got yellow curtains this time, so
Yes, yellow is the color. Should be green though, I guess, but
nice. That looks like a pretty modern. Is that like a real modern, or like kind of the sparse, minimalist type of decorations there, or?
oh, so actually, so it's interesting. The house that I'm at here is on the dock. So
Hmm.
they took these docks, right? And so this is actually like a cargo hold or something. Um, so they took these docks and where they like stored shipping containers, like we're literally at the end of a dock, a big shipping dock, and they converted it into housing. And so it's like these
Wow.
kind of like they give you like a cube, and then you
Okay.
like it's like three or
Like
four
a
levels.
shipping container?
Yeah, like almost like a shipping container, but it's like
Okay.
like these big warehouse like dock. Like they give you a cube, and then you have an architect come in. I'm assuming this that I'm making this up, but it's probably true. But you have an architect come in and then design the space. So yeah, there's like
Wow.
one that has a tree growing in it. It's weird. It's like,
Nice.
but it's like the place that we're staying, the family's house that we're swapping. It's like let's see, so it's like 4 levels. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's kind of cool.
So it's just it's like a small, almost like a townhouse where it's like stacked levels.
Yeah, exactly. It's stack levels. Yeah,
Huh.
4 levels. So yeah.
Wow. So you could buy, I guess it's kind of modular then. You could probably buy 2 or 3 or however many you need. And
I'm assuming so. I mean, I'm making all this stuff up,
yeah.
but I think it's probably true because I'm just observing it and I'm assuming that's what it is. But it just looks like that's probably what it is. So
Nice.
for all I know, it could be government housing. I don't know. But
John's on the projects.
Totally.
yeah, actually, you know what? It's funny too. The day I got to Amsterdam, it was the worst storm, like worst July storm in like recorded history of Amsterdam. We were like,
Holy cow.
we took a train from Bruges, and they're like, oh, there's a delay on the train due to weather, and I'm like, what kind of weather? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what? That's an excuse, right? And then we get to Amsterdam, and it's like raining and stuff. But I guess before we got here, like we started walking around and stuff, and there's like trees all over, fallen all over
man.
the place. Like there's
Wow.
like just trees down everywhere. And this is a big city, like, and they have a lot of green spaces. It's just like
Right.
it's like chaos. So yeah, so I am bringing, I'm going
You're
and
pulling,
bringing.
the Florida hurricane season has been pretty lame this year. You've just sucked it all up into the into Europe.
Up into Europe.
Yeah.
I bring I'm like the plague bringer or something. When I went to Maui last year, remember the first week?
Oh,
I was
yeah, the
there,
hurricane,
2 hurricanes. They hadn't had hurricanes in
Yeah.
years. So
Stay
yeah.
away from Pittsburgh, man.
I caused riots in France. It's crazy. So.
The simple programmer
Yeah.
trail of destruction.
I met some
Well-
guy there was this when I was right before I left Ireland, there was this dentist and he was like, man, I'm friggin' bored, I'm in Ireland. So I was like, you know what you should do? Like, you should go to Africa and kill a lion, and that'd be awesome. So I don't know what happened to the guy, but I told him to email me.
Wow.
Well done, sir. Well.
Did not see that coming. Well played.
I think there might be something to this entre-programmer's path of destruction, though, because when I was in high school, I went up to Boulder, Colorado for a youth retreat thing, and while I was there, they had the worst flood in 500 years. I mean, I'm serious, like 500
Wow.
years it had been since the town had flooded that bad. It was 1997. And then a couple of years later, I moved up to Denver for college for a year, and like 2 weeks after I got there, they had their first tornado in like 25 years. So I just pulled all kinds of weather from Kansas up into
Nice.
Colorado with me.
Well, there's 4 of us, and there are Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
That's right. That's true.
Oh man. Well, when I was growing up, I grew up. So when I was like around 12, we moved out into the boonies. I was born in the suburbs, and then we moved out into the boonies, and it was like we lived on a game preserve. And our nearest neighbor was like a quarter of a mile away. That's how rural it was. And so nothing. It was it was super boring. Nothing ever happened there. And but when I was in high school, I got a job at Radio Shack, and so I was working one day, and I came home, and I pulled in the driveway, and the entire like we had this grasslands behind us, and like hundreds of acres of grassland just black.
Oh man.
The neighbor had been burning some wood, and it started a wildfire.
Wow.
And like blew through. I mean, it was real windy, so it was just like this wall of flame, several stories high, just rushed across the all the acreage of open grassland, and I missed the whole thing. It's like the one exciting thing that happened there when I was a kid, and I was like, I totally missed it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was in Colorado for that year of school, I came home for, I don't remember, Thanksgiving, I think it was, and it was about a 9-hour drive, and I drove from Colorado, from the middle of Colorado mountains, from snowboarding that day to the middle of Kansas. And I left Colorado at like 7 p.m., so I got home to Kansas at 3 or 4 in the morning. And when I pulled into my neighborhood to pull into the driveway, I saw just about 2 blocks down a whole bunch of flashing lights, looked like fire trucks and ambulances and everything else you can imagine, and thought, that's interesting. So I got inside my house and went to bed and woke up the next morning and asked my parents, hey, what happened down the block there? And my dad recalls this story that is just absolutely insanely crazy with a tornado. So my mom and dad had some friends over for dinner that previous evening, and it was starting to get stormy, and so the friends got in their car to leave and go back home because they're pretty much done for the night anyways. And as they were getting in the car, my dad hears what sounds like a freight train coming down the street. Only there are no train tracks within miles of the house. And so that sound is endemic of a tornado. If you've ever been through a tornado, you'll know that sound of a freight train coming down the street. And so my dad's waving his friends down, trying to get them to come back in the house, and they don't see him. They take off, turning to the right, going down the street to get back to their house. And right about that time, this sound is getting louder and louder and louder from the left. So my parents rush back down into the house, into the basement, and tornado sirens come on and everything. And a few minutes later, after it's all gone, they go back outside to look around and see what damage had been done. And there was no damage anywhere in the neighborhood except this one house 2 blocks away had its roof ripped off and dumped upside down on the street in front of the house.
Man.
That was the only damage done. That one house had the roof ripped off. Everything else was fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so did you see any other tornadoes? Well, and have you seen any living where you
Oddly enough, the little town that I lived in Kansas rarely got hit by tornadoes directly. There were tornadoes around us constantly. I don't know if it was like elevation change or the heat generated from the city or what it was, but the tornadoes that I went through were never actually in the town that I lived in. They always skipped us. They were always around us on the outskirts of towns, out in the country, etc. I mean, I went down into the basement countless number of times in my childhood up through college because of tornado sirens, but never really seen one in person. Although I take that back once. Not in my hometown in Kansas, but driving to a music festival in Illinois once. It was the middle of the afternoon, supposed to be bright daylight, 2 or 3 p.m., and I have my high beams turned on and am driving about 5 miles per hour down the highway because it's pitch black outside, and
gosh.
raining so heavily that I can't see anything. And the wind is blowing and howling, and it's horrible and nightmarish, awful. And I get through the storm, and eventually find a radio station that's working again, and find out that I just drove through a tornado.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty
Wow.
awesome.
See, I didn't know tornadoes sound like freight trains. I thought it was like it's like I'll get you, my pretty.
No, that's what the tornado brings. Basically, the witch rides a freight train into your front yard and then
Nice.
rips your house apart. Yeah, no, they really do. I mean, it's if you've ever stood near a freight train as it's rumbling down the tracks,
Yeah.
it sounds like a freight train coming straight through your head. I mean, it's ridiculously loud, rumbling. It's pretty terrifying, quite honestly. I've been near several tornadoes, not in my hometown, but in other places in Kansas and Illinois.
Wow.
So, anyways, now that we've
Yeah.
regaled the audience with all kinds of
By the way, no one loves us, I think, because has anyone signed up for the Entrepreneurs Retreat? Or we?
oh, jeez, I don't think so.
You probably would get emails, Derek, because
Yeah.
you created it. So
I should be getting emails, but I haven't
Has
received
anyone
any.
clicked the Eventbrite link?
I don't know.
Do we have a link in the? Well, it doesn't matter.
yeah, we do.
Yeah, it's in there. It's the email is getting sent out. Let me see if
Yeah.
people are actually reading it.
I mean, I would not be surprised if, and this, I guess I could turn this into a self-fulfilling prophecy, but that's a pretty big sale, and I would
Yeah.
not be surprised if we don't end up selling any.
I would not be either.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
So we've had 7 people click the link from the email.
Okay.
Okay.
So prove me wrong, folks. but yeah, I mean, we have talked about the price on the podcast before,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So
constantly.
it's
Yeah.
not a surprise to people, I don't
Right,
think.
but still,
So-
$1,200 is a lot to
It's a
drop.
lot.
Yeah. It is plus travel. I mean,
Yeah.
it's it's definitely expensive, but we can't really bring the price down either because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless
we'll
we
be
got
paying for it out of our pockets. So.
sponsors or something.
Right.
That'd be kind of weird though. Like if we had sponsors at the retreat and they're like,
There'd be like 3 sponsors for every attendee.
it'd be like, okay, everyone has to watch this short video on my laptop.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
We're only allowed to talk about drip. No other.
That's right.
if you have any
No other
yeah.
possible marketing automation at all.
Yeah. That's funny. Oh, speaking of which, did you guys get an email from Drip that like offered for you to pay a year in advance? And
Yeah, I totally jumped on that.
I didn't get an email. I didn't get.
Really?
Not.
Did you get it, Josh?
I am not going to be paying a year in advance. I can guarantee you that. I'm not dropping what's $400 times 12. Yeah, that's not happening.
Are you
So-
planning on
No, it'll be
actually-
4,000. So.
Are you planning on reducing your monthly cost at some point? Because otherwise, you're saving money if you do.
Yeah, I mean it does come down like because I'm still losing subscribers, and it drops pretty consistently. Like every couple months, it drops another.
Your monthly cost drops.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm down to like $389, down from
Right.
like $469 or something. So.
Okay. Well, the
yeah, I don't think I
interesting
wanna-
thing about the yearly payment, I jumped on board with it right away because you get like a month or two of free service out of it. But I emailed Rob asking how it worked, what would happen if I went over my monthly allotment of sending emails or subscribers or whatever.
Mhm.
And he basically said that I paid for credits.
Yeah.
And if I go over my current credits
Gotcha.
faster than the 1 year, then I buy more credits at that point in
Okay.
time, which makes a lot of sense to me. So if you did drop $4,000, jeez, on
I don't have the money to
year
do
in
that.
advance,
Honestly.
then
Yeah.
you more than likely it would take longer than a year for you to spend that.
I don't like. I actually would prefer. I do not jump on those deals very often because I actually prefer to have the monthly expense. Because I can cut. I keep the money. I keep my money in my pocket longer. B, I can budget for it. Like I don't want to get hit with another. Like I jumped on the yearly plan for Lead Pages, and I regretted it because I didn't want to renew, but I wasn't paying attention, and they hit me for like another $500.
Oh, but you can just email them then, and then.
I think I tried. And
what? That's the sleaziest sleazy.
I might be wrong about that. I don't want to.
Because that would have to be the sleaziest sleazy.
Like, I think that their policy is like no refunds. So I was just like, I just gritted my teeth, and I should probably.
Yeah,
I'm not
very
using
few
it
companies
anymore.
actually. The only really horrible sleazy companies that I've ever dealt with that actually have a no refund policy that they enforce is frickin' airlines. I hate airlines.
Yeah.
I'm gonna email them and ask them for a prorated refund then, because that would be
totally
nice.
should.
Yeah, you should.
But no,
You might drop
it.
Yeah.
I understand your point in dropping $4,000. I don't have that kind of money to drop them. But for me, it was a no-brainer for me.
I like to be able to budget monthly too. I like to have a pretty good sense of what my monthly expenses are. And
I don't really think it
makes
a difference, though.
Yeah.
Well, it does, though, because, it does because then you have to track when all these things renew and what month they're going to happen in.
I drop it on my credit card and I pay that off over a short period of time, and then I don't ever have to worry about it again.
Wait a minute. Did you just say over a short period of time?
Yes.
Like 30 days, right?
Like a couple of months usually.
No, Derek, no. You just gave back the money you saved.
Uh-huh.
Because it's 19% interest rate or so on a credit card. In fact, it costs you more money if you do it that way. Like, just
Probably.
pay off the credit card at the end of the month, man.
I'm getting there.
But yeah, I just like the clean. I like to see. Well, and often I find that I sign up for services and then end up not using it like I thought I would. So
yeah, that's the real killer.
And then I paid for 10 months of something I don't even want.
Right, but for me it made sense with Drip because there's no way I'm switching to anything else. I like Drip so much, and I use the crap out of it.
I haven't been in Drip for a while, but gosh, like I don't think there's anything missing now that I have requested. Pretty much everything I've asked Rob for is there.
The one thing that I still want, if you're listening, Rob, is a way to organize my broadcasts. I want to group my broadcasts so that I can have a launch sequence as
that would be nice.
That would be nice. Please, Rob, please.
I would
want
like
conditional emails, but it can be done, I suppose, with Liquid templates now. So.
Yeah, I would like. Well, I take that back actually, because some of the A/B testing stuff that I've asked for, I think is.
Yeah.
They haven't had a lot of uptake on the A/B testing that they built into it, so I can see where Rob's coming from. But
and the thing is, like, as I ran through the numbers, I actually was playing around with one of those calculators that actually calculates the statistical significance.
Yeah.
And those are like, okay, I got to find a good if you search for the link though, I'm sure you can find.
there's some good ones out there.
If you play with that, like just throw numbers out there. And then you'll realize that A/B testing is mostly just worthless.
Well, see, okay, but here's the thing though, the one thing that, so if you're testing and you're finding small differences, yes, but if you run a bunch of tests and you find something that's 5 times better, then that gets to significance much faster.
Right.
You can actually, so yeah, your button colors are not worth A/B testing, but your headlines are.
Maybe.
Your headline could be a 5x or a 10x thing on a sales page. It really could.
There's a compounding problem in that kind of stuff, though, because I have a friend that does nothing but data analytics for button colors and position and sizing and stuff like that at a company that he works for, and they make a lot of really strange decisions based on the numbers that they receive. Right. But the compounding problem that they constantly run into is that change is a factor in
that's true.
in these differences.
Exactly. Yep.
If somebody comes to your site one day and sees X in position Y, and then they clear their browser history or use a different browser on a different machine, and they go to your site and see it's different, that affects their willingness or ability to buy something. So there's a lot of variability that goes into A/B testing that is out of our control. However, from a scientific and psychological standpoint, it's pretty stupid not to be A/B testing on a very regular and consistent basis. I mean, when I talked to my wife about this a couple of months ago, and we actually recorded this wonderful 45-minute podcast episode on the subject that I never released anywhere. But the
lost podcast episode.
Yeah, the very first time I described to her how software development was getting into this whole idea of A/B testing and using controls and experimental conditions and whatnot, she looked at me like I was crazy, not because she thought the idea was dumb, but she could not fathom how we had not been doing this since the dawn of software development and marketing and sales. It was completely foreign. The idea of not doing that was so completely foreign to her that she couldn't comprehend how software developers don't do this.
But see, you need statistical significance, and that's the key. Right. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter.
Right, and a couple of percentage points difference, that's probably not going to make a difference.
Yeah.
But
and the problem is
drastic changes. Like
if you test your button color or something like that, and you get like a quote unquote you get like a 5% bump from changing the button color. Well, yeah, that's true, but then something changes upstream in your traffic, or you change your headline, suddenly totally everything else changes downstream when that happens.
Yeah.
So it potentially wipes out. So yeah, for me, it's really only worth testing big things.
Yeah.
Until you get to a level where you have a ton of volume,
right?
And you really and it's consistent. You really can.
Yeah, you get to that Netflix level where they do.
Yeah.
They do multivariate testing every minute of every day, and they get millions upon millions upon millions of data points every single day for all of their testing, and they have this ridiculously, insanely awesome analysis set that they do on all of these changes that they make, and it's amazing.
Yeah, there it makes sense, right? I mean, it's just that for most cases like that, like I don't know for sure that any of us, I'm going to make a real broad statement, that any of us have seen a place where A/B testing, like in our businesses, where A/B testing, where we would have had statistical significance.
Yep, I agree.
I think I could generate enough volume that I could.
You probably could from your mailing list with Sublime, Josh.
No, because your open rate isn't high enough. Only you could generate it in subject lists on subject lines for open rates, but once you factor people who opened it and then try to do A/B testing within the email itself on clicks, you don't have enough statistical significance.
I've got my last email got 43%. Well, one of my first sale email got 43% open rate. So what's that on 56,000?
So actually, let's do that. Let's look at that number. Okay, I'm going to do statistics.
That's 24,000 opens. That is definitely enough to generate a statistically significant.
Not necessarily. So let's look it up. Actually,
it depends on. The main factor is going to be, I've done the numbers myself, and the main factor is how big of a difference. Like if I see, if I see a 1% click-through rate versus a 1.1% click-through rate,
right,
I'm going to need a huge number of clicks to detect that. But if it's a 1% versus a 4%, which is closer to what I actually got, that is a big enough difference that I could pick it up and know that I did something right there.
Okay, so let's say that you want a confidence level of 99% or
95.
95%. Okay. Hold on, this isn't a good one because I don't understand what confidence interval is. Where's it? There was this real simple one that I found.
Optimizely one was pretty good. I think.
Do we trust Optimizely? they're probably going to be geared towards the telling you that it matters.
I mean, it's a pretty standard formula. So, significance calculator. Let's see here. Okay, so are they running AdWords to their calculator? Oh man.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know if I trust them so much then. But it's an interesting experiment. I mean, I was running all kinds of numbers through there the other day, and I was like, oh wow, yeah, none of this matters. Sorry.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
Yeah, I agree. I agree to some extent, but like, so my client, one of my clients is running Facebook traffic, 1,000 page views a day, or somewhere in that ballpark, to an opt-in page. That is plenty to test. That it might take a few days, but that's plenty to A/B test.
How much is he running? Well, but see, AdWords
page views. No, this is Facebook.
1,000 page views a day?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's enough.
So for an opt-in page, baseline conversion rate, let's say 20%. That's about what we're getting. So to detect 20% plus or minus improvement, you only need 936 sample size. And even if you say Optimizely's being too optimistic and you double that, well, 1,800, that's fine. I can do that. But yeah, if the minimum detectable effect is more like 2%, well, now you need 186,000. If it's like 10%, you need almost 5,000. So
right. Yeah. So
the minimum detectable effect is kind of the big, that and like the conversion rate. So if those two numbers are bigger, then, which is why testing early in the funnel is better. You get more leverage from testing early in the funnel because the numbers are bigger.
Okay, so I've got this blog post, the one by David Kadavi.
Yeah.
And he would link to the Optimizely one, and he was like, "That's not correct." And then
I think he said it. He said you need a little bit more than that. Yeah.
He's got one at the bottom though that's got like a real, the good algorithm for the statistical significance. Let me see if I, because he's got the article on AA testing.
Optimizely. Yeah, that article I read that, and there was some good stuff in there, but it was also like kind of BS, because he was testing, like he was claiming the differences that he was trying to detect were things like what I'm talking about. They were tiny differences, and that's not what you want to be A/B testing.
Well, yeah, I mean, the question is, so can you generate things that are like 50% better or 5x
Yeah, you
better?
can. Like with a headline,
it's really hard to do that.
I've seen headline tests where the winner beat the loser by 30 times. It really can make that much of a difference.
I guess it depends on a few things, like the traffic source, and also like how bad the one headline sucked. Like if it was just, what I mean. Like if it was missing like a call to action.
Says, "You're a jerk, I hate you, go away," then the other one that says, "This product is awesome," is probably going to do better.
I'm looking for that calculator that he used.
Yeah, I can't find a link on there. He had a good link.
Yeah, I mean the numbers he was looking at were really small. I mean he was testing an email list, and he was getting like 0.9% click-through. He was getting like 130 click-throughs for each variation. I mean, that's not gonna...
Yeah. It was still pretty harrowing, because I was running the numbers on my site to see on like what I would need on Simple Programmer with 4,000 page views a day, and I was feeling bad.
Well, it would take you, I mean, it depends. Like what kind of conversion rates were you talking? Like for your pop-up, or...
Yeah.
Well, the problem with the pop-up is it only converts at 1%. So you could improve that by 50%, and it's only going to get you to 1.5%. So.
Okay, so let's take real numbers like from your list, because we've got that. Okay, so baseline conversion rate. What's the baseline conversion rate on the click-through rate?
So that for the sale email, that was like 4.9%. I can tell you.
Okay, so say.
So.
A 5%. Okay, yeah, okay, or we can put in 4.9%, and then the minimum detectable effect, you'd like to detect an effect of, let's say, what, 5%, right? I think that's,
No, I think because that would be too small. I mean, I would say at least like 20% would go from 4.9% to 6%.
yeah, but you're not going to do anything that's going to be 20% different in
Yeah, you can.
click-through rate.
Yeah, you
On
could.
the, okay,
hmm
you could.
Yeah.
Now you have to calculate the odds of you actually doing something that would generate that.
Well, what I would be testing. So if we had A/B testing in Drip the way I want it, I would be testing my email funnels, uh, my campaigns. Wait, did you find the? Okay, is this the? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Um,
If you want a minimal detectable effect of 20%, and you
yeah.
need
So
7,828 per branch. So you could detect
yeah,
20%.
yeah,
But it becomes, oh wait a minute. Oh wait a minute. That was an 80% of the time that that'll be detected. You want a 95% confidence level, you're looking at 13,143 per branch.
hmm
So double that if you're doing 2 branches.
And you'll still have a 5% false positive.
right.
And then 20, and that's 20%. Now, I mean, if you knock it down to 10%, it becomes 51,000. So like,
Right.
okay, but here's the thing: 20%, right? If you have a baseline conversion rate of 5%,
hmm
or 4.9, right? 20%
Right.
is a 4x improvement.
Um, no,
That's
it's a 1/4 improvement or a 1/5 improvement.
oh wait a minute. Sorry. Minimal detectable effect. Oh, it's relative. Uh, hold on. So the relative means that it's 20% better, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I see. So it's
Yeah.
this would
So to
tell
go
you
from
anything from
4.9 to basically
3.92
6.
to 5.88.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a little bit more realistic. I guess
Yeah.
that makes sense. So that's
Yeah.
still pretty high numbers that you need per branch. So you
Yeah.
would be able to
Yeah.
detect it.
Well, I could if you let it run for a while, you can. I mean, so yeah, I
Yeah.
probably couldn't. So like I couldn't. So what I'd like to test would be my. I'm going to be putting together a sequence to sell Sublime Productivity.
Yeah.
So I'd really like to be able to A/B test the body copy in the sequence, and I could very easily see, the body copy changing click-through rate by 100% easily.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd like to A/B test. And I
Okay.
think I think I could do that with a few thousand, run a few thousand people through it, and it would take me a few weeks or probably a couple months at least. But it would be nice to be able to do that.
You'll get like a shot at it, and if you make a change that isn't at least a 20% significance, then
Yeah.
you'll have wasted you'll get no data,
True.
essentially.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you have to figure in what is the odds that you can come up with something that may be
I would be
20% better.
testing. Yeah, I'd be testing two completely different sales pitches or approaches
Yeah.
or something like that to try
So,
to.
okay, so maybe your odds maybe your odds are 50-50. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely it's not a slam dunk, but
Yeah.
you know.
So you could do that right now with Drip.
You can't test. Well, you can test subject lines, but that's it.
No, you could do exactly what you're doing. So here's how I would do it if I were you.
Liquid templates.
You use liquid template and then have two separate emails like
Yeah.
in each one, and then just do a random function to do like a mod 2. So like it'll be 50-50, and then use different Google Analytics tracking codes because you can put a custom analytics tag in there, and then you can just see which one you can get the exact numbers on which ones get.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. That's kind of a pain to set up. I want it baked in.
Yeah, it should be. That's what I want too. It would be nice to have that baked in. To have conditional emails and A/B testing on them.
Yeah, but yeah, subject line. I mean, the subject line is definitely something that would be. It's pretty easy. That for most people, that's something that you could test if you've got any traffic at all. Subject line. Like just to give you an example, my first email announcement had for the sale that I did had a 44.6% open rate. So you could detect, even a small change in that pretty easily.
Yeah. But see, what this calculator got me to think, which was what you just said, which was you would write two totally separate emails.
Yeah.
So remember way back when we were first like, oh, should we test like small changes or big changes or stuff?
Right.
Now I'm squarely set in the path of if you're going to A/B test something and you don't have a ridiculously huge amount of traffic and something that's already really like well optimized, then you should just try totally different, like 2 completely different sales pages. Because then you're most likely to get a statistical significance, whereas a small change is just not going to generate enough.
Well, I would agree, except that headlines could fall in that. Headlines have enough of an impact that they could fall in that. But for me, I would do like at a minimum, I would do headline and the intro. So and then probably take a different, slightly different angle into the pitch, and then you could leave the rest of the copy as is. But
yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah,
and that's basically what I'm doing with my RabbitMQ package at this point. I've got the RabbitMQ for devs.com, but if you go to /patterns, that's where I've been sending people after they go through the patterns email course. And it's pretty much what you just said. It's a different headline, a different intro paragraph, and then from there it filters back into the standard stuff and just finishes out with all the same material.
Right. Or the other thing would be like the offer and just the bonuses and pricing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Those are big enough that you can detect the changes.
But the question is, like, do you really need to A/B test those things? Like, so to some degree, it's like at the level of stuff that you would test. Like, you're right. Like, it's almost like this. It's like, you can just figure out what would be better from feedback from other means rather than A/B testing, and make the changes and know that they're going to be better. Like, until you get to a point where you're fairly well optimized, and then. But at that point, like it's so that's what I'm saying is that it's like it's less relevant for us, and then the time that you spend, it's like I don't know.
So with the offer and the price, people are always going to tell you that they want it to be lower. I'm running into that with one of my clients. Like they're trying to decide between like doing some kind of monthly payment and basically like just a one-time price of. I think I've mentioned this before, but like a one-time price of like $197, and people complain about the price, but they're buying it.
Yeah.
And if you ask them, well, what should you have paid? They're going to say like $49. So.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, testing that is still pretty valid. But if it's that or shipping the stupid thing.
See, that's the thing.
I would definitely go with shipping.
And this keeps on coming back to like I said, it's like I almost feel like the point where you are making enough money to do A/B testing, where it's actually going to make a difference, is the point where you're able to hire a full-time person to worry about it for you.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like because every time I think about A/B testing and implementing a large amount of A/B testing in my stuff and even just revamping sales pages to some degree, I'm like, well, gosh, if I just like spent that time building another product, I'd probably make if I launch a product right now, I'd probably make $100,000. Like that makes more sense. Like that's the best path, right? Until you hit when you're hitting like $1 million a year revenue, then it's like, okay, well now getting some optimization, but then you can afford to pay someone $80K a year to be your full-time person who worries about this and does your optimization. So I don't know. It's like
Well, and it also depends on your model too. Like for you just got free traffic, so it doesn't matter as much. But if you're running paid traffic like my client is, well then it makes sense to A/B test the the opt-in page, especially to get that from a 20% to a 22%. That cuts your cost per lead way down. And then they've got a Tripwire product. It's $8, or $7. So if they can, take that from an 8% conversion to a 10% conversion, well, that has a huge impact on their numbers. Like I've got a little spreadsheet that we use to calculate that stuff, and just fiddling with those two numbers has a huge downstream effect. It's a big hinge, or it's a hinge, and it's got a lot of leverage to it.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, because I guess in my case, I have essentially free traffic,
Yeah.
so it doesn't.
Doesn't matter what you do, really. I
I
mean,
should just sell more products because the traffic it's coming.
yeah,
Like the gun is firing, whether there's a target to hit or not.
yeah,
Whereas your clients that are paying for AdWords, they're like, okay, we turn on the gun, and it costs us money to turn on the gun, so
right,
we want to have we want to have it in front of the target. Like we don't ever want to be shooting
yeah,
the gun and there's nothing to hit.
right. Yep, exactly. I'm more and more though, like I'm actually starting to get a little frustrated with. So there's a couple of approaches that I'm starting to see over and over now, and one of them is this. So Ryan Deiss has the program, the machine.
Yeah.
I think I sent you guys some links on that, and basically the main idea is that you build your funnel, and it's like an opt-in page, and then a tripwire, and then a mid-range product, and then a high-end product, and you run people through this, and the idea is like at a minimum you're covering your traffic costs, so you can run Facebook. So like bam, 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 people just will buy all this stuff right up front, and you're getting leads for free or making a small profit, and then you build other versions of that funnel, and then you make your profit off of those basically.
Yeah.
And then there's another really popular system. So Ryan Levesque, who's that guy that I had applied and sent the soccer ball to a while back, he came out with a book called Ask, and it's this really complicated system where you basically do a ton of survey research up front, and then you build out a funnel that is like it's a funnel that puts people into buckets. So like one example would be if you're in the golf market, and you're selling a product on how to drive better, how to hit better drives, and then you figure out like there's like 10 basic problems that people have, and you ask them a survey questions to try to put them into buckets.
Okay.
And then you can talk to them in the video sales letters. You can talk to them more specifically about their problem, and it's more personalized, so it converts better. So these are like the two systems that I'm seeing cropping up over and over again, and what I'm seeing is like people are just like wrecking into the wall trying to implement these because they're so freaking complicated, and like the machine is, the machine setup is great, but you've got to build like to actually just even get one working funnel, you have to have 3 products and multiple landing pages. You got to have all your traffic in order. It's like this huge undertaking, and it costs thousands and thousands of dollars to do it all. And when you turn it on, you don't know if it's going to work.
Right.
And so you're building this huge funnel. Like, gosh, I'm just like more and more just wanting to steer people towards keep it simple. Figure out, okay, you have one traffic source, one sales page, one autoresponder.
Yep.
Figure out what the conversion rate is on that. Optimize it a little bit. Then then go back and add layers to it. And I feel a blog post coming on about this because it's way, way, way overcomplicated.
And that's the better approach. I mean, what you're saying. I mean, that's the approach that I'm taking with my product. And at that point, it's like, again, it just makes more sense to build more products or backends. I mean, again, I guess it depends on the traffic source, but I totally agree with you. And then the other piece of that I think that these guys don't necessarily take into account is that cold traffic like that, like even it's just so much harder to convert through their. I don't know. Like again, someone I always get asked this question on like how to build a business or sell online training today, and what would I do, and and I keep coming back to this like. Just if you build an audience, and then then that other stuff doesn't matter as much, because like I guarantee you, if I threw up the worst sales page in the world and sent an email to my list, people would buy just because you know what I'm saying. Whereas if you are trying to get paid cold traffic, you have to have the best. Like it is going to cost you thousands of dollars, because it's not like it's going to make a huge difference on the conversion rate, the copy on that, the funnel, all of those pieces are going to make a huge difference. Whereas if you have an audience, then it doesn't really matter as much.
Yeah, there's some truth to that, but you can still build an audience with paid traffic,
You
which is
can.
what my clients are doing, and it's actually working quite well, and they're able to sell. They have no trouble selling the product, the $200 product, via webinars. They basically send people right to the webinar and make a profit pretty much every single time. It's just they want to get it automated, so
Yeah.
it's not all manual work.
I guess building a webinar though is really the same thing as building an audience rapidly. Like you're building trust extremely
and that's
quickly.
kind of how I see.
Yeah.
To me, that's how I see paid traffic. Is like you're very, very infrequently going to be able to just run paid traffic to something and have it just convert, and it's like a sale, and they move on, and you move on. That's hardly ever going to work. It's almost always going to have to be some kind of build a list, establish trust. It's just a matter of whether you pay for the list with blood, sweat, and tears by blogging, or with actual cash dollars. So.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not so sure that there's. I don't know. I mean, can you? But there's a difference in the quality too. Like if you paid for it with cash dollars, you're not going to have. You may build a list, but again, you're not building. It's a list. It's a cold list. Even they're on your list, they're warmer.
Well, it's the same thing with the giveaways though. So when you do a giveaway, you end up with 75% of the list is going to be people that really don't ever want to hear from you again. Yeah. 25% are pretty interested in what you have to say, and a small percentage of them will actually buy. And it's the same with cold traffic. Pretty typically, the open rates and stuff on a cold traffic list are right around 20-25%. So you get that, you get a drop off immediately, but you're still getting. It's still like, I mean, you get with your site, you get like a 97% drop off. I mean, the only reason your list looks better, our lists look better, is because all that drop off happens immediately, and only the people that are super interested opt in.
Well, but there's this piece too, right? Because I get emails from some people that are like, "Oh, wow, it's crazy. I finally bought your course, but I had come across your blog a couple of times, and I heard you on .NET Rocks, and then I was searching for Google this morning, and I hit your blog again. So then I was like, signed up for your email list, and so there's some of that is like."
Yeah, but even with all that, you're still only converting 2 or 3% of the people that ever hit your blog.
Right.
So email signups.
Well, not that ever hit the blog. That hit the blog like per month, because Google tracks it. So you don't know if people have come back over time.
True.
But it can't be much higher than that. So you're right. I mean,
So it's just a difference of like, well, a squeeze page converts at 25%, and you get overall you get more people who are less interested, versus a big website like yours converts at 2 or 3%, and you get a higher percentage of people who are interested.
That's true.
So the filtering happens in a different way. So and I mean, with a cold traffic list, eventually those people just stop caring and stop up, and you just delete them from your list, and then which is what I did with the giveaway. Like I went from 200,000 to 100,000 to 50,000, and now I'm getting 50, 30, 40% open rates. True. And those people are very engaged. So it's just like a winnowing process.
Yep. And the longer you keep them on there, eventually they will become buyers, as long as they keep on opening those emails.
Maybe.
Well, it's almost indefinite, right? It's like if you're either losing interest or you're like gaining interest. Like you're not continuing to read someone's emails and then you see what I'm saying? Like it may take some time, but I think there's this ripening period that the whole marketing space right now doesn't quite get or understand, which is that over time people will it's not just like people come to your site and then they convert or they don't convert, or they come to your landing page.
Well, it depends on what the market is too, because for your stuff, people might only be thinking about improving their career for a short time. Some of them might be like a good example would be if you're selling to like people who are going to have a baby, right? They probably won't care about that, pregnancy stuff in 6 months.
Well, wait a minute. That's not true, though. Okay, so take this. Okay, there was this which podcast did I listen to? The most successful car salesman in the world. Have you heard of this guy?
Yep.
I can't remember what was it on McMethod or I don't know, but you heard the
yeah,
podcast.
I've heard the story a couple times. Yeah.
Okay, but his whole way that he became the most successful car salesman of all time was by basically like counting on the fact that people buy more than one car in their life. So I mean, he was really friendly and stuff, but he followed up with people and sent them postcards like every year, and he spent a ridiculous amount of money sending postcards. And then they would buy like 2, 3, 4 cars from him, maybe more over their lifetime. And so he would just have this huge. So that's kind of, I think that's exactly the part of the whole marketing space today that I think is missing, is they don't realize that like people. Well, I mean, I guess you have like it's easier to make it. To resell to a customer, but it's also this ripening period where someone might not care about your stuff today, but you don't just like ditch them, because if they keep on opening up your emails, they're eventually going to buy that thing.
Yeah, but it does really depend on the market. Like in the golf market's pretty notorious for people like get really into it for like 3 months and they buy everything they can get their hands on, and then they never touch any of it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So it does. Yeah. But you know, your product is. You picked a really good product because it is something that potentially people will be interested in at multiple points, and probably would be interested in it forever. You know, they're always going to be looking to move up a rung. So
that's true. Yeah.
But you know, like for Derek's product, he's got a specific time frame where people are looking to learn about RabbitMQ. Once they get to a certain point. For that particular product, they're probably no longer interested because they already know what's in there. So you got to have people at the right time frame.
That's true, but he still might have like you might still have like a year to convert people, Derek. I mean, like if they're consuming your content, because I don't know how long it takes to like. I mean, someone's using RabbitMQ a little bit at their job, and then they, I don't know what the learning curve looks like, but
I don't think it would be a year. I think probably within a month or two, maybe 2.
And at some point, like.
But that assumes that they picked RabbitMQ, and there's a lot of other options out there.
And it also assumes that at some point the software itself, that part of the software probably just gets stable. I mean, like a Trackabout, we would touch the data layer stuff once in a while, but it was really just like adding a field here and there. Right. It wasn't like, where we were like, okay, need to go get an Hibernate course because don't know how to add a property to this class.
But for a long time when I was at Trackabout, I was like, I wish I understood Hibernate. And then like someday I'm going to go and learn it. And then there's like a year passes and I'm like, still don't understand it, but I know how to make this work by just trying random shit. Right?
That pretty much describes XML.
So if someone said, hey, look, I'm going to sell you this thing for $200, all that and Hibernate stuff that you're like, well, I just try like releasing the like flushing the cache here and there, you just understand it. Like you'll know when to flush the cache and not when to flush the cache. You won't spend like an hour trying to figure out how to set this mapping up, because you'll know how it exactly works. Like I would have bought that thing like at that point up, and
Yeah, but you wouldn't buy it now.
No, I wouldn't buy it now.
You're not working in that now.
I might buy it now out of curiosity. Like,
but that's my point. That's my point. It's like you've moved on, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Like when I watch, what was it that I was like, I can't even remember. Oh, when I still like go and I'm like, oh, I wonder what the new Magic the Gathering set looks like. Even though I don't play it anymore, and it was like years. Like I'm like, just because I'm curious. So.
Right.
I don't know. I might have an in Hibernate curiosity.
Wow.
Maybe not.
So, yeah, but that's my little rant. Is the start simple. At least start simple. And like my client is killing me because like they basically just were like, all right, we need to hit the pause button here because we don't know if they stop paying me because they're like, we don't know, like this whole thing is so complicated. We don't know anything. Like we don't know how many. Infusionsoft doesn't have a way to easily track open rates and clicks, believe it or not. So they have to do all that in Google Analytics. Like, they had to basically spend like a week trying to get the analytics lined up so they could even get any idea what the conversion rates were on any of this stuff. And I'm just like if we had just said, okay, let's just figure out what our baseline conversion rate is on your $127 or your $197 product, it would give us some place to start. And then we could say, okay, well, let's put a tripwire in front of that and see if that actually helps. Because the whole tripwire thing is like, well, if somebody pays $7, they're much more likely to pay $197, right?
Right.
And they're like 20 times more likely. Okay.
Is that really true? 20 times more?
Yeah, it's something like that. It might be 10 times, but it's some astronomical. So that's the whole idea of a tripwire. But the problem is that 98% or 90, like we were converting 8%. So 92% of the people who saw that tripwire decided not to buy it. Well, how many of them would have wanted the $197 product and might have bought it if we hadn't put that intermediate step in there?
Well, you still have to pitch them that. That's a mistake if you're not sending them on to the intermediate product, even if they didn't buy the tripwire.
Well, that's where you have to get into so that's where they're like, well, now we need downsells, and now you've added even more complexity, and it's just like, it's really, really difficult if you don't add one. It's like sitting down and writing, a 1,000-line class and never testing any of it, and never, hitting compile.
Yeah.
This is what they're doing, and it's crazy. And yeah, maybe some of these marketing geniuses like Ryan Deiss can make it work quickly because they've got a team and they really know their market well, and they've got all the components in place. But for somebody who's coming into it as this is like their first time doing this stuff, it's crazy.
You could also, I guess there's a big opportunity to build a piece of software that essentially is like plug in the blanks. Because you could automate all that, right? Because it's like, okay, you know what the paths are.
That's kind of what ClickFunnels does. I mean, it doesn't have like funnel templates, I don't think, but it's a relatively easy way compared to what we used to have to do. Good grief, it's a pretty easy way to do a lot of that stuff, but it's a ton of work.
I don't know, but
weeks and weeks and weeks of work.
A lot of this comes from trying to get, this still feels like get-rich-quick schemes too, right? Because people want to buy this thing from Ryan Deiss and then build this business without doing a lot of work. They just want to put together a funnel and then throw a thing up there and start selling a thing. And again, I got this question today that I just did a video on, somewhat related. Someone said, if you're creating an online teaching business today, what would you do? And I thought about it. They're like, would you do Pluralsight? Would you do Udemy? What would you do, right? And I thought about it. I was like, okay, I would come up with a 3-year plan. I'd eat like ramen noodles and live in Thailand for 3 years. That's honestly what I would do. Or I would just cut expenses. I'd plan. I'm not going to make any money for 3 years, but I'm going to focus. I'm going to start by building a blog and putting out quality content on a very focused niche. And I'm going to then find other audiences and do guest posts and try to do podcast interviews and get my name in those places so I can get exposure to their audience. The whole time I'm going to be capturing email addresses. I'm going to have a nice giveaway that I'm going to do. I'm going to do Q&As once a month, like live Q&As recorded, and get people's feedback on what are they struggling with, so that I'm making that list of all the pain points as I'm building this audience, and I have new content that I'm putting out. And then I'm going to create a very simple product that's going to cost like $5 to $10, but is going to be worth $50 to $100. A little ebook or something like that, as like the Tripwire type of thing. And I'm going to test the waters by making sure I'm solving the problem by selling that to my list. And then and that whole time I'm building up content. And then I'm also going to do YouTube tutorials on whatever topic area. Just free YouTube tutorials, like 5-minute tutorials on various topics to start building an audience there, and also to practice my screencasting and to learn how to actually teach people effectively and get feedback, so I'm not doing that with a course that I'm selling for $200 or $500. And then my final step would be to actually build a product, a high-end product from $200 to $500, and sell that at the end of an email course where the Tripwire is already being sold through that email course.
The problem with all of that is that you can do all that and get to the part and spend 2 years and then get to the part where you have enough traction to actually sell a product. of any, even a small product, and find out that the audience isn't there or they don't spend money. And that is very easy to do.
I don't think that's true. I think if you're taking those precautions, right, especially if you're selling that mini product ahead of time, like for $5.
I mean, web traffic doesn't really. I think web traffic doesn't really. I mean, look at the trouble I'm having with this explainer video site. I mean, web traffic doesn't guarantee you anything. Just because you've got a blog that's getting a bunch of traffic doesn't mean anything. Like,
no, I'm talking about building an audience, though.
Yeah,
right?
but you can have an audience of freeloaders. You can have an audience of freeloaders who won't buy anything.
Not necessarily, because if they're following you and they're following your stuff, they're gonna buy when you sell. Like
that's just not true.
Not all of your audience, not all of it, but it's significant enough. I believe that anyone could make a full-time income in 3 years following that. Like I would bet.
I mean, if you pick, I think that you're overly optimistic about that because of your success in like in the specific the niche that you're in is people that have money, and you've made a product that helps people make money, make more money themselves. But it's very easy to. I know a lot of people who have put together, technical courses and made just like, a few $100s a month off of it. That happens all the time. And they have, a few thousand people in their audience, and they do a launch and they make $2,000 on the product that took them 3 months to do.
Yeah, but having a few thousand people in your audience is not enough.
No, right? but a lot of niches are not big enough to sustain to grow an audience that's a lot bigger than that.
But no. What niche is not big enough to get an audience of like 50 to 100,000 people?
You have to be able to reach the people, and if you can't reach the people, then it doesn't matter how many of them there are, and that's a problem.
That's why this is a 3-year plan, though, right? It's going to take time, and like
I've spent 3 years building an audience. I spent a lot more than 3 years building an audience, and I've only got 5,000 people on my mailing list.
Well, but you weren't.
Right, and you got an audience. You've got You're going to a pretty broad audience of JavaScript developers. I mean, there's millions of them.
Mm-hmm.
But you weren't formulaically trying to build a very specific niched audience over a 3-year time period.
No, but there are tons. There are people. I know of people who have done this in like with Linux, right? Well, and they realized they got a big audience, and they realized, oh wait, Linux is free.
Right.
And everybody that works with Linux believes that Linux should be free, and everything should be free. Information wants to be free, and so you end up, down the road, you end up with this big audience that doesn't want to buy anything.
But that's not true, because Red Hat, right? Red Hat made its money selling, and so does.
Right. But how many companies failed? But you don't know how many companies. That's a survivorship bias. Like how many companies failed trying to do the very same thing? I mean, Xamarin, Miguel de Icaza started off trying to sell to Linux people and realized he couldn't do it because they didn't want to pay for anything. So that's why he went over. That's why he went over into Mac development with Xamarin.
I don't know. I mean, the open source model today is based around selling support, right? For a product, for the most part. Right. And there's a lot of companies that are doing it today.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just saying, it's not like you're just gonna have a 3-year plan. And you're like, okay, I am selling to Linux, specifically system admins that are installing Nginx, and I'm just going 3 years, and I'm just going. You're watching the signals along the way. You're shifting gears, you're changing course, you're maybe expanding.
Yeah, but every time you shift, you lose your audience or a big chunk of your audience. And you lose ground. All your traffic that you're getting, half of my traffic to my website is for something related to GTD. Well, I don't do anything related to GTD. I was interested in that at some point, and I thought about pursuing that, but now half of my web traffic is basically wasted.
But that's a totally different, totally apples and oranges, right? You can't switch into something that's totally different. It has to be a parallel transition.
Even a parallel transition will lose your audience. When I stopped tweeting about C# and stopped blogging about C# and started blogging about Ruby, lost my entire audience.
Yeah,
When
and
I
again
stopped,
with JavaScript.
yeah, when I stopped blogging about Ruby and started blogging about JavaScript, even though the JavaScript I was blogging about was sitting on top of Ruby code, I lost my audience again, and I had to
Right.
rebuild from scratch.
I don't know if that's. I mean,
Like,
I've had multiple people now come to me and say, like from my list, say, "Hey, I heard about you on Ruby Rogues. Oh, I actually don't do Ruby, but I listen to Ruby Rogues all the time because they don't really actually even talk about Ruby stuff specifically. They talk about
yeah.
software development stuff in general." So I mean, that's a very like I thought that was a good example because like, oh,
Yeah, but
that's
that's,
interesting.
again, that's not niche down. That's actually broadened out. That's not
Hmm.
niche down. They're doing the opposite.
Well, but okay, so but part of one way to be successful with this strategy is that you start with a very targeted niche and you broaden out over time, right? So like it's always more profitable to broaden out, but you can't broaden out until you build a name, and it's easier to build a name in a smaller niche. So you start in a small niche,
Yeah.
you expand out to bigger niches, and then you have a much bigger space. So maybe that's the piece of it that I didn't mention there that is kind of key, is the fact that, I mean, you may have a lucrative niche that you can stay in, but
Right.
but your eventually goal is to expand out. Like take Simple Programmer. When I first started out, I was very specific on I only blogged about like of simplifying a few different things and very technical on the code side, and then I brought out. Now I didn't plan this out. If I planned it out, it would look more like less chaos. It randomly happened because I was like didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't even know anything about marketing or entrepreneurship or building a business. But now Simple Programmer is a pretty broad niche. Like it's like if you're a software developer, this site is probably interesting to you. Like
Right.
it's fairly broad. Whereas
Mhm.
you know I would never advise someone to start a site like that. That would be
Right.
you're just wasting your time because how are you ever going to attract people on something so broad?
Mhm.
Whereas if you start with a smaller niche and then you like find the bigger, like if you start with the Linux Nginx system admins, and then you expand up and you're like, okay, Linux, people in general, and then or wherever, or system admins, and then Linux in general, and then you're like, Twit TV or whatever, more of the IT crowd and Android devices, and that
Right.
you can get to there.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely. I'm not saying it doesn't work or it can't work. It obviously does, but it's also not. It's also riskier than people give it credit for. I guess is there's definitely the chance that you could climb to the top of the ladder and realize you're against the wrong wall.
I suppose, but I think that you're not going to do that for 3 years. I think if you have a 3-year game plan that you're like, I'm going to.
Well, I don't know.
To,
People I talk to that email me are like heads down. They're like, I'm going to write this book, and then they disappear for 6 months and write the book,
Right.
and
And that's silly. That's foolish because who are you going to sell the book to? Like if you build, I guess what I'm saying is it's just simply this: if you build an audience, the audience itself is the asset, right? Because if you it's that whole like 1,000 true fans thing, right?
If they spend money.
But you only need like that whole 1,000 true fans, right? If you have 1,000 fans, true fans that spend $100 on you per year, you're making $100,000 a year.
Yes, that is true.
So
help me get 1,000 true fans because I've got about 100 on my mailing list.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is like the true fans are the 0.5% of your list or the 0.1% of your list. So you need to have 100,000 people on your list to have those 1,000 true fans.
And my list is stagnant. I mean,
those are the people on the 80-20 curve. Those are the people that are the extreme right-hand side of that curve where it goes straight up to.
That right there is a big problem that I have right now because my mailing list is stagnant. I'm growing slowly, like maybe 10 or 20 people a month, but I mean that's nothing. In the last year, I've gone from 4,000 to 5,000 people on my mailing list, and it's not accelerating.
But you're not doing a campaign to. Well, okay. So you only started the list how long ago, right? So
About
remember,
3 years ago.
You didn't start the list 3 years ago. You started.
He was collecting email on list.
I had 500 people on my mailing list when we started this group.
Yeah. Okay. But you weren't really focusing on getting. You weren't sending weekly emails or anything like if for all intents and purposes you didn't really have a mailing list.
Yeah,
Like
I was sending occasional emails monthly.
Okay. But you haven't been focused on trying to grow that audience, like
True.
right? So like I mean, if you're producing a vast amount of content every week, you'd be growing your audience much more. So if you're focused on it, like if you're like, okay, where can I guest post? Where can I,
Right.
produce a couple of blog posts every week and some YouTube videos and podcast episodes? Then you'd be like doing that. That's what I'm saying. Is like to spend 3 years basically almost exclusively focused on building content.
Who has time to
build an
do
audience.
that?
Yeah.
I don't.
That what I'm saying.
I
is it's a
need
3-year
to,
plan.
and I don't have time to do it.
It's a 3-year plan to like where you're not making any money for 3 years.
That's not a viable option for anyone unless you're bankrolled by your real estate investments.
The first thing I said was that I would eat ramen noodles and move to Thailand.
Yeah.
No, that's not an option for people.
It is an option for people.
No, it's not. That is not a
If
realistic option.
you're 20, if you're
for
21,
1% of people out at the end of the curve.
No,
Yeah,
no.
if
If
you're
someone like, what is an option for people? Like working a dead-end job for like 30 years? Like
Trying
just
to make ends meet so you can pay for your family's needs, yes.
needs, like wants maybe, like yeah, but needs are like, I mean, you could definitely move to Thailand and like live for like $800 a month, right? Like
Yeah,
with a
tell that
family.
to my kid who has special needs and needs to have his therapy every week. Sorry.
I'm just saying for a majority of people.
No,
like,
I think you're dead wrong there, John.
The other
I know far more people who
Okay.
are in dire straits when it comes to getting to just keeping their job because it's the only thing that is keeping their ends meeting.
No, but but just about anyone can downsize and live in like a 2-bedroom apartment.
Most people
And-
do live there already.
Well, it depends on how big your family is. Not most people. Most people that
Most
that
people in
we're
software
talking to-
development, maybe not, but most people.
Yeah. Well, we're talking to an audience of primarily software developers. I'm just saying that like someone could conceivably cut their expenses down to basically as
All
low
right.
as possible.
So let's set
survive
aside
for
the
3 years.
theoretical possibilities and let's talk about the real world of what can I do, since those are not options for me.
Okay, so what could you do? Okay, so here we go. That's good. So let's say that what is your goal? You want to be able to be completely independent, like financially
Yes.
independent, making money just from your business, not doing any freelancing, just from selling digital products online in 3 years.
Sure, let's say that's the goal, even though I have other goals. But that's a good place to start.
Okay, so number one thing I would do is as I'd say, what is your biggest expense that you're paying every month? Because the first thing I would say is cut your expenses down to as small as possible, so that the amount that you need to freelance is as little as possible. That gives you more time. So what's your biggest expense every month? I would guess it's house.
Probably my house.
Okay, so I would sell your house, and I would move into the cheapest place that you could possibly move.
You want to come convince my family to do that, though?
You asked me what you could do. I'm
No,
not
no,
saying
no.
that it's easy. I'm not saying
No,
it's easy. I'm saying it's a huge friggin' sacrifice to become independent, but that anyone can do it if they're willing to make a huge freaking sacrifice. But when I wait out in the long span of life, I say, okay, well, 30 years working for the man, and like hopefully I can retire someday, and then finally get some kind of taste of freedom, or 3 years like sleeping on a mattress, like working ridiculous hours and living in horrible conditions like hell. I pay the 3-year price. Like,
No, but I asked you to get out of the theoretical and into the real world.
right, so the real world would be like, okay, so then you sell your house and you move into the cheapest possible rent situation you can. Is it possible for you to even like to find a roommate or live with your parents, or to like do some kind of split situation where maybe you're
Theoretical
paying
again.
Huh?
Theoretical
Those
again.
aren't theoretical. Those
No,
are.
I want to
I
talk
mean-
about John. Let me rephrase it again. What can me, Derek Bailey, right now, not being able to sell my house, not being able to magically find extra time. I do have time available now that I've dropped Signal Leaf. So I have some time available. I'm consulting about 20 hours a week or contract work about 20 hours a week right now. What's the most effective use of my 20 hours a week so that I can grow my mailing list and build an audience and build my audience faster so that I will be successful in trying to become financially independent through products and sales.
Okay, so it would still start with cutting your expenses as much as you possibly can.
Which we've been doing a lot of. I mean, we've dramatically reduced. All right, we've dropped probably $1,500 off of our monthly expenses in the last year, and we're still dropping more. So that's already on the list, and we're heading in that direction.
But it would. I mean, you've got to like.
But what good does that do me? What good does the extra money do me when my time is the constraint?
Because it'll buy you 10 more hours a week potentially.
No, it won't.
Well, okay, how many hours a week do you work now?
My contract is for 20 hours a week.
But how many hours do you work in total now?
I don't know, probably 50 or 60.
Okay.
Well, not all of that's work. A lot of it's probably 30, 40. Okay. But then I spend a lot more time than that sitting in front of my computer because I enjoy this stuff.
Right. So what I'm saying is, okay, I mean, like, if you're asking me seriously, how can you absolutely do it? I would tell you that you would have to, like, seriously cut your expenses. Like, not just we're sort of cutting our expenses, but like how can I
don't understand
sell
how
my house
my expenses grows my mailing list.
Well, I guess he's saying if you could drop your contracting to 10 hours a week instead of 20, that's 10 more hours that you could devote.
Right.
To something like
and
this.
then you could probably add another 20 hours a week onto your week, so that might be a 30-hour swing. You could add 30 hours to your work week.
And what do I do with that?
Well, that's the first step, is freeing up the 30 hours. With the 30 hours,
I have time. I've got 20 hours a week that I can do something.
Then what I would do is I would switch your focus to be a little bit more narrow. To say, okay, like where are you going to make money off of? It's going to be off of this specific audience. So right now, I would say that you're a little bit broad. I mean, you're narrow in the RabbitMQ, but you're broad in the sense of JavaScript developers. Maybe that's right. You could just stay in the JavaScript developers and do like cater to JavaScript developers.
Yeah, it's too broad because I have that problem right now of being too broad because I got feedback from somebody this week that said, "Hey, I love your advanced stuff where you like the RabbitMQ and the Mongoose series. I want more advanced things that get deep into building applications." And then I also got an email last week that said, "Hey, your advanced stuff is over my head. I want more basic stuff."
Yeah.
So I mean, clearly, I've got too much of a broad problem. I haven't focused in on something well enough to have a dedicated audience.
For sure, if I were in your shoes, I would go after the beginner, lower intermediate audience because of the volume. There's just a lot more of them.
And they're always coming into it, right? It's growing.
Yep. Yeah.
So if you did that, right, then I would say, like, okay, you're serious about this, start producing 3 blog posts a week. And start producing 1 or 2 YouTube video tutorials per week that you're giving away, and then have a goal of getting 1 guest post published per week. Maybe that's one of the 3 blog posts per week. Like if I
would actually suggest flipping that around and doing more guest posting initially, because you need inbound traffic, and guest posting gets that for you. Blogging may or may not get that for you if you get lucky and hit on a keyword that ends up getting searched a lot.
Right.
But that'll give you long-term traffic, right? And
if you hit on a keyword that people are actually searching for, yeah.
But you want to have a whole bunch of stuff for them. So the reason why I would do it the other way, Josh, is because if we're talking about a 3-year plan to get free, then I want to build a broad base of content first, so that when I guest post, that I've got a lot of stuff to send people to that's highly targeted towards them. So they can spend all day looking through.
They're not going to let you link to the. They're not going to let you probably not going to let you link to specific blog posts. So if you guest post, most likely you'll just have a link to your site. Like it'll just be your homepage.
Right, and then I'm going to have all kinds of stuff on the homepage. They're going to say, oh, look at this, all this introductory JavaScript stuff. Here's a thing where you can sign up for this course, right? So you're going to have just a ton of content.
The best model I've seen for this is what James Clear did, which is where he would write stuff for his blog and then syndicate it. Now his model doesn't work though in a lot of cases because most blogs he's writing in like a personal development niche, and so yeah, personal development. Well, he can go to Inc.com and they're going to be interested, and you know he's built his audience off of Inc.com, HuffPo, Business.com, Entrepreneur.com, and those are all like he writes these really broadly interesting posts that apply to pretty much anybody, and then he gets them syndicated. Now, Derek, if you try that, you're not going to be able to do that because SitePoint.com won't publish anything that's been published anywhere else, and most sites in the programming niche are, you know, they want original content.
Again, that's why
Smashing Mag is not going to. Smashing Mag is probably not going to republish something that's appeared on your blog, so that strategy doesn't really work in a lot of niches.
But focusing on building up your content that's why I'd say that's the key, because over time that's going to build you the most amount of traffic. If you're producing, like, let's say 3 blog posts a week on your blog and they're, you know, decent blog posts, like over time you're going to start getting so much organic traffic from that, especially when a few of those posts take off, right? That it's going to accumulate over time. Over a 3-year time period, pretty soon you'll be hitting, you know, 100, 200,000 page views a month. Like it'd be hard not to if you're producing that volume of content. I mean, all the major like sites, that's what their strategy is. Like Lifehacker today, all they do is they're like, how many friggin' articles can we pump out? And that's why they do the summary articles where they link to another article now, because they're like, they don't even care about... But those don't
get you, that doesn't get you, that only gets you share traffic, and you need, that only gets you, it does not get you any organic traffic at all. You've got to, Google hates that stuff. You've got to have your own way of driving traffic, and Lifehacker does because they're so well established that anything they publish is going to get massive traffic.
Exactly.
For Derek, though, like, I mean, if he publishes one post on SitePoint.com that generates 100 hits to his site a month, which is probably realistic.
No, not 100 per month.
I mean, I saw that with.
Oh wait a minute. Sorry,
yeah.
I thought you said per day, because my my Chrome plugins one that I publish on SitePoint is generating about 10 to 15 hits a day.
Okay, well then, yeah, that's 300 a month. Well, what are the chances that you're going to write a blog post that's going to get you 300 page views a month from Google? I have like maybe 2 on all of Sublime Text Tips that get me that much traffic.
Right.
And those are like I'm not going to get any more. Like any blog posts I publish on there are going to get 20 page views a month.
But it's cumulative because
but you know how much work it is to write a blog post to get 20 page views a month. That's like 6 hours, 5 or 6 hours worth of work researching that thing and putting it together. That's not worth it.
Well, no, but it's cumulative and synergistic, right? So as you have more and more traffic, organic traffic, your page rank increases, and as your page rank increases, the level that you rank at increases as well, right? As you have more link backs, so then all of your posts get higher in rankings and get more traffic. Like that's how my blog progressed over time. Is all of a sudden all of the posts get lifted by a few of the posts.
But what if you had done the guest posting thing and you were getting? What if you'd published? You know, what if you had 200 posts out there sending you 10 or 20 hits a day? What would that even be? It's like 200. Oops. 200.
That'd be like 2 to 3,000.
That's 4,000 a day times 30. That's 120,000.
That, and 120,000 is enough to build an entire business off of.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like but
you could do it with guest posts for sure.
Yeah.
Like, you could also do it organically with your. I mean, you should do both so that you have a lot of organic traffic coming directly, so that you're not relying on other sites as well, right? If you have enough guest posts, then I suppose then you're distributed enough. You don't have any major risk,
Yeah.
but I would certainly but if you produce a volume of content, whether it be on other people's blogs or your own blog, that's going to generate. It has a very long tail to it, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually you'll hit that point where you have enough traffic where the traffic alone is a business. I mean, Simple Programmer every month alone, just without selling a product, Simple Programmer just from traffic makes about $4,000 to $5,000 a month advertising, just selling advertising. So
what are you up to now? Like around 150 a month, or
for page views?
Yeah.
Between 150 to 200.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that that's a sustainable, that's enough to make it a full-time income from just just traffic. So that's why I would say building content. But again, that's why I was saying that it takes it's over a several-year period. If you're producing a ton of content, you're going to build that. And I would use all the content channels, especially if you're selling video tutorials. I would certainly get on YouTube, because I mean YouTube alone can be a business if you're successful there. But
right.
And I've got a decent amount of things going on YouTube. I've got 420 subscribers and 57,000 total views. So there's the beginnings of a decent YouTube traffic flow there. But I think let me ask you guys a question that I've been thinking about for a long time. Was it a mistake for Watch Me Code to be a separate website? Should that be a part of DerekBailey.com?
I don't think it matters all that much, honestly. I mean, I personally, separating it makes sense because it gives it its own identity. It's a little easier. You could sell it down the road if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But that own identity is part of the problem.
Well,
there's a following of Watch Me Code, and there's a following of Derek Bailey.
It depends. Like if you're trying to build an audience for Watch Me Code and do all this content marketing for that and do it all for DerekBailey.com, then yeah, you're splitting your focus, and that's going to be really tough to make it work. It's twice as hard. Right. But if you just use DerekBailey.com as your, if your sole focus with DerekBailey.com is growing Watch Me Code, then it becomes, I don't think it really matters at that point.
Just don't put anything on Watch Me Code that you want people to find from a search engine. Then you're splitting your focus.
Yeah, it's really just it's a product site. I mean, it's no different than having a separate sales page. Like SublimeProductivity.com versus JoshuaEarl.com/SublimeProductivity doesn't really matter.
Right. Like, I guess the way to think of it this way too is that it's like, if Watch Me Code was on DerekBailey.com, how many people would find that page from a search keyword because of the page rank that you'd have on DerekBailey.com that would be higher, that would actually just go there and buy? I don't think that's a very high number.
Yeah.
I think your conversion comes from people getting on your mailing list and getting to know you and then buying your stuff, not just like finding, randomly searching on Google and saying, "Oh, look at this." I mean, I could be wrong,
right.
but I think if that would be the factor to me that would influence whether or not to have it on the same domain.
Right.
Good points.
Yep.
So I used to blog like a madman. I mean, for a number of years when I was at Los Techies, I was blogging every week, and for a while there were multiple periods of time where I would blog literally every day for months at a time. And I saw my own personal traffic at Los Techies grow from a few thousand hits a month to 75,000 hits a month. And right now I'm sitting at about 15, and I'm pretty stagnant right there.
Could you republish all your stuff from Los Techies on your own blog?
Yes, but most of it is useless at this point.
True, yeah.
It's a completely different subject from a completely different period of time. I mean, some of it is still useful, but the thing that kind of makes me mad about the traffic that still hits Los Techies is, well, kind of sort of is like anybody that does any research and work with Backbone.js reads my stuff.
Right.
Problem is they read it at Los Techies.
Yeah.
And they don't stay up to date with what I'm doing now. I've got a link in there to subscribe to my mailing list on Los Techies and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I am gathering some off of there.
Right. So, Derek, I mean, I think what I would do would be to take a look at the JavaScript landscape and then and carve out some big buckets and then do some research and look for evidence that people in those buckets buy stuff.
Right.
And books on Amazon and courses you see people selling and that kind of thing. And then just if you find one of those, really go after it. That's kind of what's it's funny, like with 30 by 500, most of the people, pretty much all the people I can think of offhand, no, that's not quite true, but most of the people who have succeeded have either gone after freelancers as a bucket, Ruby developers as a bucket, or graphic designers. Even like Nathan Barry is an example. He's not a 30 by 500 guy, but he went after graphic designers primarily. So you've got to find people that are going to spend money before you invest 3 years of your time and essentially several $100,000 worth of your time building an audience. You got to make sure that it's a good one.
Which again, I would say though in the programming space, you're not going to have a huge problem.
Yeah, I don't know.
People are
I would disagree with that, but
people will buy stuff from you if they like you. They will. It's. I mean, look.
Yes, but the difference between what they'll pay. People might buy a $7 thing from you if they like you, but if you pick another niche, they're going to buy a $500 thing from you.
I guess that's.
I mean, the likability thing is a factor, and yes, you will sell more to people who like you than to people who are coming cold off of Facebook, but how much they will pay and whether that's enough to actually pay your bills and give you a decent life is going to vary a lot from audience to audience.
Well, let me switch it around. Okay, let me switch around and say people will buy stuff from you, like a significant amount of stuff or a monetary amount, if you're providing them value. Right, because they want more value.
If they value.
Okay,
no,
so
I'm serious.
Obviously, there's a few bad markets you could possibly choose.
There are a lot of bad markets.
But I don't think there's I think majority of the ones are good. I mean,
in sports, there's the tennis versus golf. Golf is a fantastic market. Tennis is not. Even though the people are similar demographic, average tennis players making, $100K plus a year, they just don't spend as much money. They just don't spend much money on their game. They just aren't that passionate about it.
But if you had a site all about tennis, right? And you had a following, you're writing blog posts every week, several times a week about tennis, and you had subscribers that were consuming all of your content. They're watching your YouTube videos, they're listening to your tennis podcast, they are reading your blog posts, they're loving all your stuff, right? And they've been subscribing for like 6 months to your stuff, and then you come up with a video course like for $300 on how to improve your tennis game or how to get more enjoyment out of your tennis game or whatever the hell you want to make, as long as it's somewhat relevant and seems like it'll be valuable or entertaining, they're going to buy the hell out of that thing because they like you, because they are obsessed about tennis, because they're reading all your content, they're watching they're consuming your stuff, and they want more of it. And because the indicator is that they're consuming your stuff right now. Even though it's free, it doesn't matter because they're like, they want more. That's where the premium gate comes into play.
You can also train people to expect to only want free. That's one of the dangers. That is one of the dangers with content marketing is that people will actually like completely wig out on you when you actually try to make any money off of your thing.
I haven't seen that though. I produce a ton of free content, and occasionally I get an email from someone that's like, "I can't believe you're trying to sell me."
Every time I do a sale or mention anything to my Sublime list, people get angry, and
But how many? Like 100 people?
yeah, I mean it's not the majority of the list. I think the majority of them don't really care that much. But
I mean, but I'm saying, is it 100 or is it like 5?
Probably. I mean, I probably will hear from 20 or 30 at least.
Out of what, like 60,000 is it now?
56. Yeah.
Okay, so that's nothing. Like
You're not hearing from anyone, Josh.
that's basically nothing.
No, I know, but no, I know people who have had full-scale revolts when they actually tried to sell stuff to their lists because they were conditioned to expect everything for free.
Well, and my list is certainly not that way. My list expects. Yeah. I mean, I'm constantly pitching stuff.
And we all pitch stuff regularly.
Yeah.
Oh, but if you build a list for 3 years and never try to sell them anything,
right, that's a problem.
You will have a revolt on your hands when you do, and you will lose a chunk of them. And if you have enough, it doesn't matter. But
yeah, well, that's also why I said, like, with that plan that I would sell a small product first, and so that people are used to. But I mean, that doesn't matter in Derek's case, like you said, because he's already selling stuff. So
yeah.
But my whole point is like yes, I know that, like you're saying that, yes, of course golf is a much more lucrative market. Of course golf people are going to spend more stuff, but they're more likely to make like if you just had an ad and people came to your site and you're a golf store, they're more likely to spend money, right? But I don't think they're a lot more likely to spend money than tennis people who have been following, consuming your content, love what you're producing, you're giving them value.
No, but if you do the same thing in the golf market, you're going to make 10 times more. That's my point. Like if you do the same exact thing in different markets, I mean, like for me, the difference between trying to sell an ebook for $22 to programmers and selling $4,000 worth of copywriting to somebody who wants copywriting, like night and day. It's so much. It's easier to sell the $4,000 thing than it is to sell the $22 thing, and it's because the need is there. It's a more raw need. So if you can find that's really. I mean, people. Yes, a percentage of people. If you get enough people liking you, a small percentage of people will buy almost anything you do.
Right.
But that's going to be a small percentage. And so you need to pick a market where enough people spend enough money that they don't have to love you to pieces to want your thing.
Okay, but then we get into this whole arbitrage situation again, right? Where markets are fairly efficient, right? And I think there's an efficiency here that you're ignoring, which is the fact that those lucrative markets have a lot of people in them selling stuff.
Yes, they do.
So I think I think it balances out.
But JavaScript does not. That's my point. JavaScript does not. It has. I mean, we're not talking. I mean, Derek's not going to go into the golf market here.
No.
So he's not got a lot. There's not a lot of competition out there for JavaScript related stuff.
There is a lot of free competition out there.
There is a lot of free competition.
Right, but that's not competition, because you can always leverage yourself against free and say, I'm selling a premium thing. This is free. Like, it's very easy to make the case that paid something is better than a free something, right?
No, I make that case quite regularly, and quite regularly I have people. I mean, I literally have people tweet at me or email me saying, "Look, here's 5 different resources that are free that tell me the exact same thing. Why should I buy this from you?"
But again, those aren't the people that are pulling out their credit cards and paying you a monthly fee.
Right.
Those
but that's the competition that I face. Is people know that all of this information, frankly, is out there and available for free. It might not be as packaged up as neatly and nicely as what I've done, like with RabbitMQ, but that information is out there.
That's why I'm saying the content marketing. That's why I'm saying if you have an audience, the people who are saying that are not the people who love Derek Bailey.
Right.
They're the people who just came across your site, saw your pitch, and they're like, why the hell would I buy this? The people who like read your blog posts and are on your newsletter and who love your drawings, those are the people that are like, of course I would buy this. This is Derek Bailey's screencast.
Right.
These ones are worth money. The other ones are crap. They're free. Right? It's like because they want your stuff. And that's the whole thing I'm saying is that, like, I mean, majority of those, like, you can have short-term financial transactions with people that are based on on a catchy ad, on on not on something, on a spur of the moment decision to buy a thing, right?
You're never going to make money that way, though.
Well, you can, right? I mean, a lot of businesses that use the funnels.
The businesses that are making money with advertising have back ends.
Oh, okay. So
where they're building a
relationship.
You're paying for the initial customer upfront with cash instead of time, and then you're building a relationship versus paying for it with time and building. I mean, it's just it's kind of like it's time or money.
Sure. Okay. That I would take that. But I'm just saying that, like, building the relationship, the deeper the relationship you build, the better the sale prospect will become. I mean, and I know it from I mean, if I cold send traffic to my sales page, I get a 0.01% convert. Like, no one buys it. But if I do a sale to my list, I have a huge number of people that convert because it's my list, right? So I mean, that's the key thing.
Actually, if you look at see, but the thing is, if you look at if you start with the traffic that you're getting, your conversion rate is going to be pretty. It might be 0.002% instead of 0.001%. But because you're getting how many millions of hits a year on Simple Programmer, and you're selling 200 courses. That's that's the funnel you've got there.
I'm selling like 500 a year, or I don't know.
Okay, yeah, but I mean,
but my point is though, but here's the thing: is I couldn't send 1 million visitors to the sales page. I'm sending them to my content, right? The 1 million visitors are coming to my content, and then that's I suppose that's a funnel of sorts. But also it's cumulative. I paid for getting those 1 million visitors a year or whatever it is one time. And then they keep coming. If I stop producing content, they'll keep coming for a long, long time, right? So and I keep on producing content, which increases the amount that I get. So it's growing. It's growing every year. It's growing exponentially. But when you buy an ad, that's it. Like you can trade time you can trade the money for the time.
Well, if you capture the lead, you're basically skipping the It ends up, it's arbitrage. It ends up being the same thing. Like, it costs you probably at least $500,000 to $1 million of your time to build Simple Programmer.
Right. True.
So if you had spent if you'd had $1 million to spend on advertising, how big of a mailing list do you think you'd have right now? I mean,
that's a fair point.
If you had $1 million, I mean, the problem is we don't have that cash. We have more time than we have cash. Well, but but you can do it either way, is what I'm saying. And
I guess so.
And like the nice thing about if you can do the not if you start small.
Well, okay, but here's the other side of it. I have a business, an advertising business as well, though. It's not just selling people on a product, whereas
but if you had a mailing list of 200,000 people that you'd built with advertising, which you probably could have done, because like Facebook and Google clicks were dirt cheap. You could probably have 500,000 people on a mailing list right now, and you could sell advertising on that, and you could you could run that traffic to your blog every week, and you'd be getting, more traffic than you are now.
That's a good point.
So, yeah, it's like it's an efficient, like, it's which do you have more of? If you don't have the money, then yeah, you've got to use time. But if you well, the nice thing about using money is that you can test it up front, and it's painful, to spend $10,000 on ads and have nothing to show for it. But you could have also invested 6 months of your life and realized at the end of that you have nothing.
But I don't. So, I'm just. I guess I'm of the mindset that you're not going to invest 6 months of your life and have nothing.
Well, I mean, I talk to people. People email me all the time that have done that. So.
Yeah, but well, again, this is why I said it's going to take more than that. It's going to take like 3 years is what my target goal would be, and I don't think that you're going to go down a road for 3 years and not be successful, like if you're consistent. Like I just can't see, like even if you just started blogging about like unicorns, you would probably, if you consistently like made a YouTube channel and you started writing blog posts every week.
If people that want to look at YouTube, unicorn videos or pictures spend money, then you could have a business.
Yeah, well, but you would eventually build a business out of that. Like it'd just be like, I mean, hell, like look at that Pew
PewDiePie.
Yeah.
PewDiePie, right? Yeah. He didn't like. He just started recording like him being a retard on camera.
Right. But how many other people on YouTube are doing the exact same thing and have been doing it for a long time and making absolutely nothing?
A lot of them are making a lot of money. The ones that are consistent, like I don't think. Okay, here's a challenge then. Go find someone who's been recording themselves acting like an idiot and playing video games for 3 years and making at least one video a week, and who isn't making $100,000 a year. Find one. I don't think you'll find.
I don't even know where to start looking for that.
It's not going to be easy to find if you can find one, but I don't think you'll find one. I think you'll find a ton of people, though. I think you'll find I could find 20 right now that are making over 100,000 that have been doing it for 3 years. But I don't think I can find one who hasn't. I think success isn't very hard if you're consistent. Like it just takes a lot of time. Like it doesn't even matter what you're doing, really. Like I'm firmly in the camp of like if you're just producing like content, not crap, but like the best that you can on any subject for 3 years, that you're going to be successful.
Well, I mean, I know people that poured 10 years of their life into different business opportunities like MLM, and worked 80 hours a week and had basically nothing to show for it. I mean, consistency is a. No, I mean, not 80 or 90 hours a week pounding something is not working it like a job. I mean, just consistency is a virtue, but only if you're heading in a positive direction.
True, that's true. I mean, you could work your job you could shovel crap for 40 years.
I think you underestimate. It's when you're successful, it's very easy to underestimate what unsuccessful people, how they think, and like I'm fairly intelligent. I don't think of myself as intelligent, but like if you look at my test scores and my grades and everything, it was obvious that I was smarter than some other people, right? But to me it's like it's just normal, and I don't even think about it. It's just stuff is easy. Like why is everybody else not getting it?
Yeah, everything's easy. The same thing happens.
The same thing happens when you're successful.
Yeah, of course it was easy for you. You already did it.
Well, yeah, I know what you're saying, like the survivorship bias, but I'm saying find people who have been doing things like and the internet is definitely like different is levels the playing field so that anyone.
So can I tell you someone right now who I personally saw work their butt off in very consistent manner for 15 plus years and almost lost everything.
Okay.
My dad. My dad, being an entrepreneur, went through, just ridiculous amounts of hell with me and my family when I was growing up. Him working on businesses that were legitimately solid businesses and great plans and great ideas and great execution, and things just don't work out for you sometimes. You're in the wrong place at the wrong time. You end up having the wrong customer who tries to sue you and takes you to court. And I mean, there's just nightmare after nightmare of stories about of my parents going through financial difficulty with my dad doing exactly what you're talking about, being focused and being niched and being the best product and the best service and the best everything out there, and having it all slammed in his face. It's not simple. It's not easy work. It's not just focus and be done with it. It's make sure that you're heading in the right direction in the right circumstances. And there will be people that will actively tear you down and try to rip you apart and try to take it from you. It's not going to be wonderful support and glory the whole time. It's going to be actively fighting against people that do not want you to succeed for whatever reason it is. It's not logical. It's not something you can explain. It's just that's the way people are, especially if you're not a white guy like us. I mean, you talk about any person of color or women or whatever case you want to make for not white males, then it gets 10 times harder because there's going to be that many more people that want to tear them down and stand in their way on the road to success. We have it pretty lucky from a lot of perspectives. I have it pretty lucky. I have been phenomenally successful in my career in spite of and because of my circumstances. But it's, I want my business to grow more, so I'm looking at these things that you're saying, and I'm going, yeah, okay, I see a lot of work that I need to do and a lot of the things that I'm doing wrong, but standing from a position of success and telling people to just do these things is ridiculous.
No, okay. Maybe I'm painting too pretty of a picture. I mean, like, what I'm saying is that it's achievable. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that my road was easy. I mean, hell, I busted my ass working 80-hour weeks for
yeah, since you were 18 years old, doing all of that with real estate and everything, and that's part of the problem is most people are not in the circumstance where they can rewind time and start over when they were 18.
I agree, but I'm saying
people are sitting in our circumstance where Josh and I are, in our 30s, and we're just now trying to start building this career. So it's going to take. There are constraints in the real world that we have to live and work within, and we can't just go up and sell our house and suddenly have an extra 30 hours of time every week. We have to work within the constraints we have.
But that's what I did, is I slept on the floor on a mattress.
Yeah, that's what you did.
That's what
you are the exceptional case, though.
What I'm saying that anyone could do that, like if you're willing.
And I'm saying not anyone can.
Not anyone.
I'm saying there are very few people that can actually do that.
That are willing.
There are more people that could do it than actually do it. Yes.
Right.
But the percentage of people that can legitimately do that and not die and not have their family fall apart is fewer than you're saying.
Okay, so but that's still right. That I would still categorize that into a willing. Like, there's a price for.
Well, I mean, like in my case, so my mortgage is $800 a month. It would be hard for me to find a someplace where I could keep a family of 3 for less than that.
Yeah, same here. I pay less. I pay less in my mortgage every month right now.
I'm sorry, a family of 5.
Than it was costing me and my wife to live in a reasonable apartment. Now you add the 2 kids in there, especially a special needs kid who has legitimate physical problems that have to be taken care of.
I mean, when I graduated, I lived in an apartment that was like, it was like a 1-room apartment basically, and it was like $325 a month, and it was basically in the ghetto. So, and I think I think I could probably, to get a 3-bedroom or a 2-bedroom apartment even, or a 3-bedroom apartment would easily run me close to what I'm paying now. Unless it was like in the literally in the crime infested, people get shot on your front lawn areas of Pittsburgh.
But you're paying, I mean, only $800 a month, plus you could pay off your mortgage. Like, you would have paid it off had you kept your regular job for another year, right? But you chose to make a jump because that was a better choice for you. But what I'm saying is that, like, you could very well have set yourself up for that exact situation. I mean, hell, if you paid off your mortgage right now, which you probably even have close to the cash to do it, except you're saving it for, like, to have as a reserve.
Yeah.
If you did, you could basically, like, live, if you didn't eat out, like, you could basically live on like $500 a month, maybe $1,000 a month. Like, at the very smallest, like, if you had to, what I'm saying?
I mean, if I didn't want to have health insurance,
or electricity, that wouldn't be an option.
Which would not be a good option, because it's like, for example, when we got our van, I decided to buy collision coverage on the van because it's relatively new, and then on Saturday I backed out of my driveway and my neighbor hit me and rear-ended me. Basically, I was backing up first. She zipped out of her driveway and rear-ended me, and that would have been $1,200 if I hadn't bought the collision coverage. So, I mean, yeah, if I didn't have health insurance, I could save $800 a month, but I could also, basically
bankrupt
destroy my
yourself the next
entire.
time you go visit
Yeah.
the doctor.
There's a significant amount of nothing is like again, I subscribe very highly to the whole like markets are fairly efficient. There's not an arbitrage situation. Like everything has a cost and a price. Like and there's no like free tickets or shortcuts. There's very like you have to get somewhat lucky, right? And that's where risk comes in. Risk means that you need luck, right? It's like risk. There's the other end of the
but it's not. It's
you got to be
when
doing
you have.
everything right and get lucky. But
When
the
you've
more
got-
things that you're doing right, the more likely that you are to be able to step in line to have luck hit you, right? It's like there's.
That's true, but I mean, I don't like the downside of paying $800 a month versus having a $100,000 medical bill. There's a pretty big potential downside there, and it's not like having a $100,000 medical bill is all that rare.
It happened to me 2 years ago.
So,
I had $200,000 in medical bills, and I paid about $2,500 of it because we were paying for the insurance.
But you don't need to take that risk, Josh. That's why you're not taking that risk.
right.
Right,
But-
you're able to
right.
produce income to be able
Yeah.
to make like
Yeah.
if you just wanted to say no, I'm going to build like a product business and I'm going to take this time. You could potentially go that road, but you'd have to take more risks in other areas. I'm just saying like if someone was dedicated to wanting to do
No,
this
but I'm
in
tired
3
of talking theoretical ifs. I'm tired of talking about the perfect situation. I only want to talk about the real world with the constraints that we actually have to live within.
But those
Because that's the
constraints-
only thing that's the only thing that I can deal with.
Here's what
can't-
you're arguing. Here's what you're arguing. You're saying that the constraints are this big, and I'm saying they're this big. You're saying, oh, I'm black, I'm a woman, I have a mortgage, I have kids, right? And making this huge bubble. I didn't. And I'm saying no. The bubble's actually like this. Like these are the things that like this is the bubble of slightly uncomfortable, and this is the bubble of like this hurts like friggin' hell, right? And I'm saying it's actually this. I said, and I'm saying you might not want to live in this bubble. You might want to live in this bubble or maybe this bubble, but it's not this. And so, like, the smaller the bubble is, the easier it's going to be. I mean, hell, if your living expenses are only like $1,500 a month, hell, you could become financially independent real quick. Like, it's not going to take you much time at all. All you got to do is generate $1,500 a month. If your living expenses are like $8,000 a month, you got to generate a significantly more, over 3 times, almost 4 times that amount of income. So
no,
like,
your
it
bubble
starts with the
analogy.
bubble.
I totally agree with that. The problem is all of the points that you're saying that people need to look at in order to reduce that bubble size are points that most people cannot reduce. They have to find other places to reduce.
They can reduce them. They don't want to reduce them, right? Like it's extremely painful. Like if I said, like, okay, here's just an example, right? Do you ever eat out at a restaurant?
Well,
right? Like that's like I'm not saying don't ever eat at a restaurant, but I'm saying
it's not
that
just-
is a bubble that could be shrunk.
right.
Like,
But people also have other people in their lives,
Right.
right? And like, if it's just me, you know what? If it was just me, I probably would move to like Bali or Thailand right now
Yeah.
for a little while, But I have a wife and I have 3 kids, and I'm not going to, if
I can't put my
that,
family through that.
if I did that,
Right.
I would potentially be, I could end up sacrificing my family.
I totally agree with
Yeah.
that. But I'm just saying like so what can you do within your
Right. That's the real question.
Like, what are you not? You're okay. So you're both admitting that your bubble potentially could be like this, but you'd have to give up your family to do it. That'd be a sacrifice.
Yeah.
you
We're not
wouldn't
willing
want
to
to give
make.
up. And I totally agree with
Right.
that sacrifice.
Yeah, and I agree. Yeah, I mean, in principle, I agree with what you're saying about it's like, most of the restrictions that we labor under are self-imposed.
Yes.
But then also a lot of it is you've got other people in your life that you're responsible for, and so their needs come into play as well.
Right.
There are still a lot of things that are self-imposed, though.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's all I'm saying is like I mean I'm an extremist, right? You guys know I'm an extremist, so
Right.
I always say things.
Well, and
extreme,
you've
rough.
lived all this, so
But
Right,
you,
and I
you
have
lived it at a time when you were able to make those choices with far less of a dramatic impact in your life. You didn't have a bunch of kids when you were living in a one-bedroom hostel for a year, you know?
correct,
Right.
correct. But I did when I built a simple program. That was when I started building the real estate stuff. But the real changes, like the real things that actually ended up making money, were done after having my first kid. Just one,
Right.
so not like a whole. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
So but there was
But
still
by
a
that
huge
point
amount.
in your life, you were already accustomed to living in that circumstance.
Yes,
That was normal at that point for you, and asking people for that to become the normal is significantly more dangerous than telling people that are already in that circumstance how to get out of it.
okay. Yes and no, because the thing is, like, you don't have to get what you want, right? Like, okay, it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's like, okay, do you want to be free? If you do, what is the price you're willing to pay? It's
Right.
going to have to be it might like and how quickly, right?
Right.
Because if you say, okay, well, it's a 10-year timeline, okay, well, fine, then you can relax a little bit more, and you're not going to have to make your bubble quite so small. But if you say,
Yeah.
in 3 years, I don't want to have to work for anyone. I don't want to have to do crap that I don't want. I want to be financially independent, be able to take care of myself from just a mostly passive income from the internet. Well, then your bubble is going to be pretty freaking small, and you're going to have to adapt to a lot of painful stuff and you're going to have some negotiations with your family and say, hey, look, we're going to be bunking up and right, we're going to be living we're not going to be eating out. We're going to be like, buying eggs and rum and whatever. So that we can all agree that this is worth it to achieve this goal, and maybe you're going to have maybe people aren't going to agree, and maybe that's not going to be an option for you. But I'm just saying, like, that's like there's no way around it. Like those are the choices, and yes, there are like some people are dealt different hands, and some people have worse hands than others, but you can only play the hand that you have, and you don't know how good your hand is, honestly.
Yeah.
Like you can't say I'm black, I'm disabled, I'm blind, I'm mute, whatever it is. I live in a low income, and that is a bad hand, because sometimes that's a good hand, because a lot of people that like sometimes adversity becomes a really really good thing, like Helen Keller. Like, I mean, there's plenty of examples of that. Sometimes like having a silver spoon in your mouth is the worst thing that you could possibly have. Like, you don't know what these cards mean until you play them, and so it's, I mean, yeah, it's a crapshoot, but you make it, you have some control over it. You can only exercise the control that you have.
So Derek, really, to get back to Derek's problem, Derek, you basically need a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
You got to come up with a way to get a lot of traffic. That's how, I mean, with free traffic, that is what you have to have. You have to have massive quantities of it. So, I mean, it's also, conversion is also important, but conversion optimizing, 1,000 page views a month versus 100,000.
Right.
It's a huge difference. So that's really the, well, you've got to pick an audience that's going to buy some stuff from you, that's willing to do that, and you've got to get a lot of traffic, and that's just really really what it comes down to. And I mean, I think either for my money, I would go with guest blogging, put more of my effort on the guest blogging, because you're leveraging somebody else's huge audience versus Google, the whims of Google.
Right.
And I mean, that's honestly the way I would go with it. It would be interesting to look at some of the guest blogging that you've done, and go into Google Analytics and figure out what kind of traffic you're getting. And I mean, you could also look at, it might also be a good idea to go and look at like something like BuzzSumo, where you can get a pretty good idea of what people are sharing, what's the most popular content out there, and go where you got to skate where the puck is. I I mean, I think that would be my main, and I'm guilty of this too. It's a really common error, but I think that would be my main critique of what you've done so far is that you've written and done the things you want to do, and in some cases people are willing to pay for that, and in some cases they're not. In the case of your RabbitMQ thing, there are people willing to pay for it. It's just darn hard to reach them.
And I'm realizing slowly that is the case with the RabbitMQ stuff. I looked at my sales report this morning, and I've sold $1,000 worth of stuff, most of RabbitMQ stuff this month, which is only a few copies of things, but
but that's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, it's nothing to sneeze at, and it proves that there is the audience around. The problem is finding the audience.
And think about it. Like
that's and what you're saying, I think, and I agree with, is I'm doing it backwards. I'm building a solution and looking for the problem, hoping, and what I need to do is find the problem that people are already having and build a solution. Which I honestly thought I was doing in this case, because this was a problem.
Well, you might be.
You are.
This way.
Yeah.
If you 10x your traffic, you would have, instead of 1,000 a month, 10,000 a month, right? And you said you're getting about,
assuming you 10x it with relevant traffic, but yeah.
Well, yeah. But I'm saying, out of your current pool, if you 10x your traffic with the current distribution it is now, right? Which you said you're getting about 15,000 views a month.
Yeah.
So again, and it scales right up, right? I'm getting about 150,000 views a month, and I can sell about $10,000 worth of product a month, potentially more if I were But what I'm saying is, you don't even have to be hitting the target very, very hard if you're able to generate. So it's conceivable that you already are okay with the product, and you just need to increase traffic. Turning on the traffic would get you to a point where you'd be able to make a living from that product.
Yeah, well, that's 15,000 sessions. It's about 19,000 page views.
Okay, so I mean, still somewhere right around that.
Yeah.
That number, but.
I'm real. Derek? Have you looked? What numbers were you getting with the keyword? Did you look at the Google keyword tool for RabbitMQ and get a ballpark?
Yeah, they're ridiculously low.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's just a small. Yeah. It's a very interested audience, and that's cool, but it's also a very small one. Yeah, so you're not going to get.
You look at the keyword planning tool for RabbitMQ, and it's only like 5,000 or 6,000 a month.
But it's not just But how many people are downloading RabbitMQ and using it? So the total. I guess what I'm saying is it's a small pond. But you could easily become the big fish in that pond. You could become the name synonymous with RabbitMQ.
But it's still a small pond. And if you can find a bigger pond, it's so much easier. It is so much easier when you're fishing in a bigger pond. This isn't a
small pond. This is a bucket full of water.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. How many RabbitMQ downloads do you think there are?
I don't know.
I mean, it's probably like 1 million. Right?
Yeah.
It's probably a big enough pond. I mean, honestly, I think it's a.
But you have to. Okay, you have to have a way of reaching people. That's the missing piece here.
But
if people aren't searching, if only 5,000 people a month are searching for RabbitMQ, and there's only a few thousand followers on their Twitter account, and no one is talking about it on Facebook, and the most popular blog posts get 10 shares. They're out there, but there's no way to reach them. I mean, if you could somehow get RabbitMQ's download list and get all their email addresses, yeah.
But that's not impossible. I mean, not exactly how you said, but if you become the RabbitMQ person, right? If you've written the book about RabbitMQ, if you've if every time that someone does an interview about RabbitMQ, they talk about you, it's enough of it. You could become a master
that happened with me in Backbone.js.
Right. Then you're.
But Backbone was a much bigger pool.
Huge pool comparatively.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I mean, that's.
I
wouldn't make this your main thing.
You can scale it up, but it's going to be a fraction of.
Yeah.
It's always going to be a tiny fraction of what you could scale up with if you put your time into something else. You know, it's like you're going to be going after 0.5% of, like, if you go on .NET Rocks, right? How many people listening to .NET Rocks will be interested? Maybe, I don't know, maybe 1%.
Yeah.
Versus a broader topic, or a topic with more developers in it. You've just got a bigger pool of customers. You're just going to get more mileage out of everything you do.
Yeah, well, when I do go on .NET Rocks, I'm recording with them on Monday. The subject is going to be messaging and messaging in the browser, which is interesting in itself, and I'm going to have to try and steer the conversation to the back end eventually so that I can at least mention RabbitMQ and get some interest there.
Well, what if you became the messaging guy?
Which is something that I've been talking about, I mean, for damn near 6 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have a lot of old blog posts on messaging because and Service Bus and Mass Transit and all of that stuff. So if you became the messaging guy, you could sell RabbitMQ, but you could sell other messaging package solutions as well. You could have you could have the whole array.
Yeah.
And then
in development, I really think that. I think it's easy to sell. It's easy to make a few bucks selling a niched down product.
Right.
But I don't see a lot of people that are successfully taking a really focused niche down product and actually making a living off of it.
Right.
Most of the people that are making it work are in more of a broad, like, testing. They're like a cross-cutting, testing. Ruby. I mean, the Ruby thing. Ruby Rogues thing we talked about is a good example. Like, probably a big chunk of that audience is not even Ruby developers because they talk about they're much broader. They're more like a theory level. And John, that's what you did too with your blog. Like, you wrote about testing with examples in C# and Java.
Right.
And I think, like, with development, if you can cut across technologies, then you're not tying yourself to a specific technology, which tends to be very faddish. Like, if Derek had really staked his claim to Backbone and was still trying to flog that horse, he'd be watching his income drop every month because it's just not as popular as it used to be.
But the key to building the name, to really to building a name for yourself and having it is starting with the small niche and then building bigger concentric circles, right? As you go to a bigger pool, like,
right. But what was your innermost concentric circle, or your the bullseye in when you started your blog? You were writing about, like, testing. You were writing about software development principles, right?
Right.
That's how I found you. I found you when you were writing about testing.
Right. I didn't practice what I'm preaching now because hindsight is 20/20, right? If I were starting over now, I would pick a very, very specific niche, a very small pond, and be known as the guy who does this thing, right? Build up a name from there, and then expand out to the circle. So, like, in this case, like, I mean, you're not starting from scratch, Derek, but if you were starting from scratch, it would be like, okay, be the RabbitMQ guy, so everyone knows that you know everything there is to know about RabbitMQ, like, you're the resource. Then once you master that circle, then expand out to messaging. That's why I think you're already at the phase to expand out to messaging. But with RabbitMQ, maybe if you became the RabbitMQ guy, you wouldn't be able to make a full living off of it, but you'd be able to build up enough of an audience that you could expand to the next concentric circle of messaging. And some people, like, that had been working with Mass Transit and Service Bus that were kind of like, an earshot of RabbitMQ would say, oh, I remember, I heard about that Derek Bailey guy, right? When he was the RabbitMQ guy, right? Now he's talking about messaging in general. Oh, he's probably, like, he's an authority, so I'm going to go listen to what he has to say. You see, and then it expands up, and then you go up one more circle and say, well, now, like, someone like Bob Martin is a really good example. Like, what does Bob Martin do? He's, like, just an awesome developer, right? That's what you would classify him as. Like, I mean, you could say, like, solid, but he's more than that, right? He's just a well-known, like, he's got the huge circle. He's got this ridiculously huge circle. But he started out being the C++ guy, answering on the C++ forums, and then he expanded out, and he was, like, the solid and agile guy, right? And then he expanded out, and he was, like, doing this thing where he was, like, I forgot what the language was.
The whole TDD thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then so I don't know. So that's what all I'm saying is. But I agree with you, Josh, that he shouldn't be at the just RabbitMQ at this point. Like, messaging, I think, is the right circle.
Well, messaging, I would still spend some time, because the problem with content marketing is, and I hit this with SitePoint, is you have to be able, like, to be able to get traction in any kind of reasonable time frame, you have to be able to distribute your content. You can't. It's not just enough to just write it. You have to be able to promote it. And if there's not places, that's why, like, the Nathan Barry thing, like, he came into the whole thing right as Hacker News was breaking, and right before they got to the point where they were openly hostile to anything
Yeah.
that even remotely smacked of, you know, trying to get traffic to your site.
Right.
You know, now, if somebody tried to follow that model, they'd end up with a knife in their back in a dark alley. So you've got to be able to. So with messaging, are there places you can distribute that content and get enough traction, unless you want to spend 5 years working on it? I mean, that's always.
Right.
Eventually you will get traction with it. But with SitePoint, the marketing stuff that I was doing, like, there was just no interest for it. So that meant I had to go, even though the site was getting, like, you know, millions of views a month, there was no interest in that topic. So I was pretty much going to be on my own to go out and start hunting down ways to get traffic to the site.
But if you would have done that for 3 years, you would have succeeded.
But it's
just
much
a
easier.
high price to pay.
It's much easier to swim with the current if you can find a good current.
Yeah.
Than it is to fight the current. So if messaging is not something that you can get content out there about, but JavaScript, you know, I don't know, like, like responsive JavaScript for responsive design or something, just to make something up. You know, if that's a really hot topic that everyone's writing about right now, and you know something about it or can learn about it based on what you already know, you're going to get a lot more traction that way than if you will saying, you know, I'm going to focus on this other topic and just blog my brains out. So find a parade and get in front of it. It's like an old marketing saying. Find a parade and get in front of it. Don't try to start your own parade.
Yeah. It's just that there's more competition in the bigger.
Yeah, but there's
spaces. So
also
if you can come
so
out
much
in front,
more.
there's bigger prizes.
There's also so much more, like,
Validation of the market.
Yeah, and there's also there's more validation in the market, and there's also just a lot more there. Like, there's more to the pie. Like, I'd rather have. I think I could start a blog about. I think I could start a content, like a content curation style blog about running, and have that up to 100,000 page views a month in like 6 months or less, easily, just because there are 40 million runners. Versus a blog about Sublime Text, there are, you know, a few 100,000 or maybe 1 million total users worldwide, and probably 80% of those can't afford to spend any money on it.
I guess but see, you've got an advantage. I mean, you're competing in a space with a whole lot more people if you try to make a running blog, but your main advantage is that you understand marketing better than 90% of the people writing blogs and stuff about running. So that would, in that case, yes, makes sense, and heck, maybe you should do that because you do have that distinct advantage. Yeah, so okay, so I guess that would probably apply to Derek in the marketing space and in marketing as far as JavaScript as well, right? Because like 90% of the people writing posts have no idea how to market, right? I mean, the software development community, like, marketing is like almost nothing, right? So pretty much you could pick a fairly big space as long as it's targeted enough, and and you have to. I mean, here's the other thing that we have this discussion, Derek, which is how much. I mean, we've been doing Entreprogrammers for less than 2 years. What, about a year and a half?
Yeah. Almost 2 years.
72, episode 72 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and we started before but anyway,
right. It's almost 2 years. I think it'll be 2 years in like October.
But how much how much have you grown in 2 years? I mean, like, Watch Me Code went from nothing to, like, now it's bringing in several $1,000s a month. You've got other products, right? I mean, you've got you've made a huge amount of progress in a couple of years.
Right, and I totally agree with you there. I mean, the amount of stuff that I've done, that I'm doing now compared to 3 years ago is pretty amazing. That my concern right now is that I see myself stagnating, and in order for me to make significant growth like I have in the last 2 years, I need to do something different. And I've been floundering and failing and trying to do different things for the last 6 months, and I'm lost and I don't know what to do next.
Yeah.
I don't know what the next thing is that will, move me forward in the next year as much as I have moved forward in the last year.
Well, if the ultimate focus is it to make Watch Me Code grow as much as possible, like is that the ultimate?
That is one avenue to buying my freedom, but I don't see Watch Me Code as something that will be long-term viable for more than maybe 5 years, but maybe probably not even that, because the continuous creation of screencasts in this category is, I mean, it burns people out. I'm burnt out, but I keep doing it because it's a significant portion of my income right now, and I don't have anything to replace it. I missed last week or this week because I was sick, and I'm terrified that I'm going to miss next week because I'm falling out of the desire to continue doing it. It's ridiculously difficult.
I mean, we're talking about just one avenue of building business, right? Like, so my focus is, I'm saying, like, this is how you build a content business.
Right.
But there's other businesses. You tried a SaaS business, but you could do another SaaS business. Like, I mean, there's a whole, like I said, everything that I'm saying is totally about building a content business, which I don't know if that is what you want to do. And maybe that would be something that you'd feel burnt out on if you're producing a ton of content.
Yeah, I don't know.
Producing screencast content, so.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, Derek, I think leverage is like the key word. Look for a big group of people that are easy to reach, and have a set of problems that you can solve easily. Versus, if you just continue on, you will grow. If with what you're doing, you will continue to grow if you keep on this path. But it's going to be, slow.
I don't know that I will at this point though, because Watch Me Code is stagnant again. I'm back down to, I'm back up to just over 350 subscribers. I was down below 350 for a number of weeks, but that number hasn't grown. That number has steadily shrunk in the last 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're able to, if you're able to double the amount of people you're putting into your mailing list, and you're making videos that are congruent with the blog posts you wrote to get those people onto your list in the first place, it's going to be an easier sale.
Well, that's part of the problem there is I almost never pitch Watch Me Code to my mailing list. I pitch my screencast bundles, but those are separate for sale products. I never pitch the subscription. Maybe I should do that.
Yeah, that would probably be good. I mean, people should at least know it's out there.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, chances are there's a lot of people on my mailing list that just aren't aware.
Yeah,
or they are aware and just never think about it.
Can you do a sale and give a discount on the first 3 months or something?
No, the system that I use doesn't have good. I can give you a discount forever or no discount at all. It really sucks. I've asked him time and time and time again to build better discounts, and he doesn't put a lot of time and effort into this product because it doesn't make him a lot of money. His big money maker is the Easy Digital Downloads and all of its add-ons.
Can you give a discount forever and then take it away, and change it? Because maybe you could give people a discount for 3 months, but you could create a list of all the people, and then after 3 months, you do the sale. You collect all the people that signed up during that window.
Just run a MySQL query.
Yeah, exactly, and then change their discount to not a discount, I mean, it's
Yeah.
manual, but it's probably not that painful.
It'd be, I mean, if 300 people signed up, that would be 300 times 10 minutes worth of work. Yeah, it's painful.
But you'd also have 300 people, and you could
Yeah,
probably quit doing everything else.
But how much? That's part of the other problem that I have with Watch Me Code is how much time I spend answering individual issues for $14.
How many issues do you have? Like questions about the code, the examples, or billing problems?
All of that.
Yeah, that's
People
the
that
problem.
people that don't click on the account button to try and figure out how to cancel their subscription.
Oh.
Yeah.
I get multiple emails from people asking, how do I cancel my subscription? You click the account button and it tells you how right there. I mean, that's the kind of question I have to answer for $14. And if I don't answer that question, people get really mad and assume that I'm a scammer and start bad-mouthing me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Because,
I mean,
he wouldn't let me unsubscribe. Well, no, you click the fucking account button and unsubscribe.
That's a problem that becomes easily solved once you up your revenue to an amount where it makes sense to hire a VA that can just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's true.
No, and you're exactly right, which is part of the problem of Watch Me Code. For $14 a month, I mean it's not worth my time answering anyone's question for $14 a month, but I have to, otherwise I lose all of that income because nobody will trust me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. That's true.
I thought about upping the subscription to $19 a month, and I'm at the same problem. Sure, I'll make a little bit more money for new subscriptions, but is it worth $19 a month? It's worth far more than that, but that's $14 a month is already more than most people are willing to spend. Because
I don't know.
the average subscription screencast service out there is $9 a month for the independent level.
I do think it still does come to the content marketing. If you build more traffic, then this problem solves because you have.
Really, I mean, it has to. I mean,
yeah,
because the business model doesn't support anything else.
Yeah.
So.
And as long as you have a solid enough, like if you are establishing yourself in this space, you build enough content, and you have enough people coming to your site, then you can always build other products or SaaS or digital products or whatever and sell to this same space.
Right, which is kind of what I'm trying to break into with the RabbitMQ package. Of all the stuff in that RabbitMQ bundle, less than half of it, or actually about half of it, is screencast that you can get from a subscription. But the rest of it is not available for free to subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not that these problems are insurmountable. I'm floundering and I have no idea what to do.
Well, you also had a lot of time with Signal Leaf, right?
Yeah.
But now that you've just barely, you're not even totally free from it yet.
Right.
Right.
So.
I mean, it might be worth. I think it would be worth your time to spend 10 or 20 hours going through and looking at the market. So go to Hacker News, go to Reddit, look at the most popular. What?
No, those are cesspools of assholes that will not spend a dime.
They are, but they will tell you. Okay, I'm not telling you to go post there. I'm saying go look at what people are talking about and upvoting, and get an idea of what is hot. And go to Amazon, look at the most popular books related to JavaScript. Look at the ones that have the most reviews and comments. Read what people are saying in the comments, and go to sites like BuzzSumo. Look for the most shared content. Go to some forums and try to find something that you can. Because see, my problem when I was trying to do all this was that I didn't have. That's basically 30 by 500 is
Right.
That's a big chunk of it, what I just described there. And the problem I had was that I didn't have the knowledge. The knowledge that I had was primarily the C#.NET space, and I was not seeing the kinds of signs of life that I wanted to see to make me dive into that market.
Right.
But with you, you've already got this deep well of knowledge when it comes to JavaScript, so you can whip out products for it if you figure out what people want.
Wait a minute, I can predict it though. AngularJS.
Yep.
Well,
But
I
it's
mean,
too late for AngularJS. You can't. You got to figure out what is the next thing, and get on that. Like as you see it rising, because there's too many AngularJS people out there now. I think.
yeah,
No, I
you can still
agree.
do it, but by the time you catch up, it'll be old hat. You know, by the time that's the problem with that's the problem with jumping on a technology platform like AngularJS, is it's got a 3-year lifespan.
Yeah,
you
which
can
is what
ride
I
the
ran
wave
into with Backbone.
exactly. If you can ride the wave when it's coming up, great. If not, then you're going to be spending a lot of time sinking on basically polishing brass on the Titanic.
Right.
Because it'll be, by the time you get everything ready to go, it's going to be on the decline.
Right. That's why you want to kind of, but you need one of those in order to build the reputation, to be able to build the bigger circle that will last, right? I mean, to where people are like watching your stuff and subscribing to your stuff because they're just like they like you, they like what you're teaching, they like learning, they're fascinated by it. You know what I mean? Like, or I mean, obviously it's still got to be in there, but like that's where the whole like just JavaScript in general space would come into play, which. Yeah, that's where I'm a little torn. I'm like, should you just maybe just try to become the JavaScript guy, maybe the beginner JavaScript guy that teaches everyone who's beginning
Definitely not
JavaScript.
the beginner.
Well, not that you would be the beginner, but
No. I know what you're saying, but definitely that's there are far more resources out there for beginners. Than there are for there's a gap, which is what I originally wanted to fill with Watch Me Code. There's this massive pile of beginner stuff. There's this massive pile of expert stuff, and there's nothing in between there. But the in between is such a murky, difficult place to be.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's a good sign when there's nothing there, and sometimes it's a bad sign.
Yeah, and I've realized, I've learned that over the last few years that there's a reason that the stuff in the middle is almost non-existent. It's because it's a really murky, difficult, gray area that requires laser focus and has an audience of almost nothing for that laser focus.
But what if it's that you have the different product orbits, you know, like we've talked about before, where you have the beginner stuff, you've got then the next step is to go to the intermediate and the advanced stuff, and you've got and it's more expensive as you go up the tiers, as you teach someone to become better and to become a master of and that it's more of, you know, they are able to increase their career and grow with you. So you have like the beginner stuff to hook people in. You have some stuff for the middle tier. Remember also that like when you're focusing on the content marketing type of stuff, people are searching and they're at different levels and they're stumbling on the content that is relevant to them. So they don't actually realize that you're doing beginner, medium, and advanced stuff. They just see the stuff that's valuable to them, and you know. You can have related posts that are kind of like, maybe you can have posts on your blog that are beginner, intermediate, advanced categories, and then people could navigate based on those. I don't know.
So if I were to pick something out of the thin air, I would probably focus on messaging and architecture, like you guys were saying before, because that is something that I've written about for many years now. And there's a lot to say on that, which could lead people to, you know, my current RabbitMQ stuff, but also to a lot of other products in the future.
Right. But can you get traffic for that?
I think so. Based on my history on Los Techies and the amount of the amount of that type of information I see passing around on JavaScript Weekly and Node Weekly, yes.
Okay.
Part of it will be staying on top of current trends, like the whole microservices trend, which is a stupid buzzword, no different than service-oriented architecture or all that crap that's coming on. It's just renaming what we've always been doing.
Right.
So part of it is getting
Hipsters are good for that.
buzzwords and trends, but part of it is, hey, this knowledge in these architectures. I mean, messaging patterns. I've spanned 4 languages in my career with messaging patterns,
Right.
and they are tried and true and the same in all of these languages across 3 different platforms. Across Windows, the web, and mobile, I've used these patterns. Across C#, Ruby, and JavaScript.
Right.
You know, both in the browser and on the server. I mean, so these patterns are. I mean.
You got to take the patterns content. I mean, if I were going after this is a challenge with this market, I think.
Yeah.
Like just from is that there's not people that are just obsessed with messaging. I mean, maybe there's a few, but the people are searching for stuff on specific messaging frameworks like RabbitMQ, like nService Bus, like Mass Transit, like whatever else that they're using. So I think maybe what would make sense to me as a strategy would be to write a lot of content. A lot of specific content on the different platforms, some general content with examples in specific ones, and then to like produce a gambit of knowledge, maybe even a book of general messaging patterns and architecture, and then make a bunch of like courses that you would sell from that are implementing that in the different ones. So so one example of that is there's a guy that that guy that I'm that other mastermind group that I told you guys about from.
Are you cheating on us with?
Yeah, the Selenium guy from that testing conference, right? Dave. He is like selling a book on Selenium, and he is a course on Selenium essentially, and he's got like a Java and a C# and like he's doing all the different languages. So I think that pattern seems to be working for him. That'd probably be where I would go, because I just don't think that people are just like the generalized messaging. I don't think you're going to have enough of a following like that.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of the same thing you've done with your blog, John, which is you're writing now about software development. Well, the life coach for software developers thing. You could never start a blog and have it go anywhere if that was your angle.
Exactly.
The only reason it worked is because you already got 100,000 page views a month coming in from other stuff that is of interest to the same audience.
Right.
So that's another thing to throw in there, Derek, is like a little bit. I think I froze up there for a minute, but you can push out the circle a little bit and try to find things that are tangential to messaging. That would get some traction as well. So you're not.
And I kind of did that with Backbone. I introduced the idea of messaging to the Backbone community through solving Backbone problems. Like, hey, here's this problem in Backbone. Here's this great pattern that solves this, and it makes your applications that much easier. And oh, by the way, I put it into Marionette, and here it is for free. Just go install this and use it.
Yeah.
Which I kind of sort of want to do with Node.js and RabbitMQ, because there's not a good service bus in Node.js right now, and I have half of one built, but it needs to be reconstructed.
See, that's another good angle too. Like if you can do that, like man, your Marionette stuff became so valuable. But like if you can build like an open source project that becomes popular, and then you're able to sell from it. Like if you're in the right, if you could have taken advantage of that at that time, you could have done extremely well with it.
Yeah.
But
go look at leanpub.com right now. Pull up leanpub.com, the front page. Look down at the bundles and tell me what you see in the top bundles.
Sublime Productivity. No, I'm just kidding.
Who's that guy that writes 60% books and sells them like crazy?
Yeah, I know.
right now in the top bundles at leanpub.com, there is Build a Better Backbone app, which there happens to be one of my books in there. But the other two books by David Salk, he has not been out of the top bundles in 2 years.
So you could still cash in on your Marionette stuff, I guess. I don't know.
I wouldn't. I don't know. If you look at the Google Trends on Backbone, I wouldn't invest time in that. It's like it falls off a cliff. It's
Right,
like,
but if
you
I
know,
look at Google Trends on RabbitMQ, which I pulled up 2 minutes ago,
uh-huh.
it's skyrocketing. I mean, well, not sky. It's a linear growth over the last
Right.
5 years, 7 years,
Yeah.
but it is just continuous and constant growth.
Yeah.
Man, that's
But
ingenious.
it's still small. It's still it's grown from
Yeah, it's
4,000 hits a month to 5,000 hits a month.
right.
So that's still. I had another point I was going to make, and I can't remember it now.
I just got distracted by this 50 quick ideas to improve your tests, to improve your user stories. That's ingenious. I love that.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, I know what I was going to say. Hey, Derek. So, what I would do if I was in your shoes is do a pilot. So say, all right, well, let's find out. Let's invest 2 months in messaging.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do, X, Y, and Z blog posts, and I'm going to do a little research and try to find out where I could maybe get some traffic from this, and maybe do a guest post, and try it for 2 months, and then set some sort of criteria. Like, I want to see, I don't know, from all this work, I want to see my 1,000 hits a month, or something like that, or 500 hits a month, or pick some criteria, and try it.
Yeah, so part of the difficulty there is I can guarantee if I write a blog post a week,
mm-hmm.
it'll increase my traffic by 2,000 to 3,000 hits a month, just no matter what the content is.
Well, that's awesome then. Yeah, that's.
Well, but that's those are one-time spikes. You're saying.
Right.
They're like, and then it's like 2,000 hits, and then 5 hits a month.
And then it bumps back down, and then so it's But no, I like the idea. I think that's a good idea. I can set some realistic.
And maybe don't
goals.
even promote it to your own audience. Like, I guess maybe you have to. But,
it would go on my blog.
That's what. Yeah, I mean, go put it on your blog, but don't kind of like what we did with our challenge, right? Where we would try to just see if you can, because you're not going to grow this very fast just with your own audience. So you'd need to be able to tap into external audiences.
Mm-hmm.
So don't put any effort into promoting it to your audience, and see what you can do.
I never do.
To leverage other. Yeah, I mean, it goes out in your RSS email, and that's
right.
That's
it.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, and don't tweet. Maybe don't tweet about it or anything. But
no, everything is tweeted.
Okay.
I mean,
well,
Edgar,
then pick some level above what you would normally expect.
Yeah, right. That's the thing. I can guesstimate the spike that I will get just by adding new content.
Yeah. I want to see 1,000 hits from Smashing Magazine or whatever.
Yeah.
And just see if you can get any traction with it. And I would do that honestly before investing more time in product or marketing. Because if you can solve you have both you have a traffic and a conversion problem, really.
Right.
And at this point your traffic is so small that focusing on the traffic probably makes more sense.
Yeah, and see, the other nice thing about focusing on the traffic is it makes the conversion problem less, because if you have a smaller amount of content, you need a better pull to convert people. But the more content you have that people are consuming of yours, then the affinity for you increases, means that it takes less to push them over the edge to buy.
And like we've talked about before, traffic is something that I can control easier than conversions.
Yeah.
I can spend time writing content and building traffic from various sources, but I can't necessarily improve my conversions as easily.
Yeah. The trouble is the developer market is going to be tough to. You're more limited in what you can do in terms of conversions.
People keep saying that, and I used to say that all the time, and I don't really think that's true anymore.
Well, what I mean by that is
the developer market is made up of human beings, a very wide, very large pool of human beings. But they also have
much less tolerance for. If you make a misstep with a room full of developers, it's gonna be hyenas. Whereas a room full of kind of happy-go-lucky salespeople are gonna have a very different response to the same.
I I don't think it's any different because you have you have the Venn diagram between human beings and software developers is
I don't know,
100%
man.
overlap.
I think it's. I don't think there's a lot of overlap there.
I,
I'm just kidding. No, yeah, but different personality types, different markets respond differently based on personality types,
yeah,
and
no, you're right. You're right about that.
yeah, and so all I'm saying is that like
That is not unique to software development. That's the
no,
human.
no. Yeah. But there are other markets that are the same way. Accountants and dentists,
Right.
all have their own quirks when you're marketing to them.
Right, and
So
developers do have their own quirks, but it's not any more difficult or different. Let me rephrase it. It's not any more difficult to market to software developers. It's different in the way that any market is different.
yes,
And
well,
you need to focus on the quirks and traits of that particular market in order
it
for
is more
to make it
difficult to market to a more skeptical audience than it is to market to a less skeptical audience.
effective. Yeah.
And software developers are up there in terms of
Well,
how
yeah,
skeptical they are.
you could
So-
contrast it with like what would be a super easy audience to market to.
Business
Well,
opportunity.
I was gonna say, well, I'd say the most extreme that I can possibly think of would be like
Drug dealers.
no. Close.
Druggies. I mean, people that
Holistic medicine people, like people who believe in like natural healing and psychics and mystic. You know those sites
Yeah,
for those
yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
crazy people. They'll buy just about anything, literally and figuratively, right? So.
Right. Yeah, and I think like with software developers, you just have your margins are just smaller in terms of the mistakes you can make. So it's going to be harder to optimize. I guess that's all I'm saying is it's going to be harder to optimize
Right.
to a developer audience than some other audiences because they don't, you can't dial up the hype. If there's even a whiff of hype, you're
No,
toast.
I've been smacked down for hype countless number of times.
I know, and you're not that hypey.
I don't know,
Right.
my stuff is sort of hypey though, and I end up doing okay.
Yeah.
Your stuff is very opinionated, but there's a difference between opinionated and hype.
But my sales page is kind of hypey. But yeah.
I don't think
No,
it actually is.
I think they're.
Okay.
I see what you're saying, but I don't think it's the same kind of hypey as what Josh forwarded to us about that Amazon listing.
True.
Oh
That
my
was
gosh.
That was
That
pure
was
hype.
criminal. Oh, by the way, so I rewrote that guy's listing, and so I helped him tweak the headline and the positioning of that product last week. He changed it, and he sold one of his items over the weekend, and then we posted the listing, just the top part of the listing and my headline, and he's already sold another one. And this was after not selling anything all month. So
Right.
Oh wow.
I'm
Nice.
hoping that that'll
Yeah.
pay off for him long term.
Cool.
So
All right. Well, we've been on for almost 3 hours now.
yeah, this is like the epic. Hopefully,
Yeah.
people are listening to this at like 3x
Blame
on their
Chuck.
podcast player. Yeah, Chuck. Yeah, gosh, can you imagine if Chuck was here? It would be 4 hours. So I don't.
Okay.
So Derek, I don't know. Does that help at all? Like we should. I'd like to. I don't know. I'd like to see you have an
yes and
execution
no.
plan.
It
It's
answers
theoretical kind of stuff, but
Yeah, the thing now is for me to actually make some decisions and start moving forward. I mean, it's
yeah.
it's really easy for me to flounder about and guess and hem and haw.
Yes.
And it's entirely different once I actually commit to trying something and moving something forward. And I like the content marketing angle, and I like the tryout messaging and architecture angle for a couple of months. And I say I like those things because I'm comfortable doing them. Those are things that I've done before, and they've worked for me in the past. But I wasn't selling things in the past. That's
Right.
So
Yeah.
I know I can generate traffic from that. That's
Right. Well, and you know that you can sell, at least you can sell the RabbitMQ thing
yeah.
to your email list. If you can get people on your email list, you can make some sales of that. So
Right. And And the question is, how long does it take for somebody to warm up to me to the point where they'll spend $250? I mean, I've made,
Yeah.
you know,
I
I've
don't
made
think it's gonna.
$1,000,
It should.
almost $1,100
It
this
shouldn't
month off
take
of.
6 months or a year. It should.
Yeah.
I think that I think like within a few weeks, if you're delivering the kind of quality content that you do, that you'd have a pretty good shot at being able to.
Which is why I
convert.
think I need to rebuild my email course that for marketing.
I wouldn't. I don't know. If I were you, I wouldn't put a lot of time into that right now because.
But so the whole video idea that I told you guys about is a lot of time and effort.
Yeah.
But I can forego that and build a new email course as an introduction to messaging patterns and messaging architecture, which would go straight into my blog to begin with, because that's the focus that I want to take for the next couple months anyways. And I can turn those blog posts into the email course, and the email course can end with, an introduction to RabbitMQ, which would then go straight into a pitch for that course, because it is a process of education, because people don't understand the purpose of RabbitMQ. So people need to understand the benefit of architecture and the benefit of messaging within architecture and messaging patterns, even if you're not using a full-blown messaging solution, which is where the conversation that I want to have with you, John, on Get Up and Code, where or the Simple Programmer podcast, which I won't be able to do today.
Yeah,
I think the one thing I would say about that is that if you don't know who you're talking to, it's very hard to say the right things.
Right.
And so if you put in some time plumbing the depths of the messaging thing and find out what people actually respond to, it might end up being that you're heading in the wrong direction. I don't know.
And part of the problem there is I don't know how to do that.
How to do what? Like
what you just said. I don't know how to do that research. I don't know how to put out those feelers and figure out what people are flocking to and what questions they're having in order to find that kind of information.
I mean, go to Reddit and Hacker News and look at what people are talking about when it comes to messaging.
That doesn't really tell me anything, because those are.
It does. No, but it does. It tells you a lot. It tells you what people care about and what they're talking about.
But what they're talking about is not messaging. It's whatever happens to be the popular flavor of today, and the internet is getting mad about.
No, look on specific articles that are about messaging and look at the comments, I would say, that are put up on there, as well as Stack Overflow.
I am doing Stack Overflow. I started answering questions on Stack Overflow for RabbitMQ recently.
Because it's so the problems are so stinking specific.
Yeah.
Like that's what I found trying to use that for Sublime was like 80. Like I went through like all the top posts and 99% of them were super. Like I have Snow Leopard. And Sublime crashes when I open up Chrome.
Yeah, no, but this is part of Stack Overflow was a huge part in me becoming the Backbone guy. I've got 43,000 reputation points, 40,000 of which are from Backbone.js.
Right.
Backbone.js on Stack Overflow, I think I'm still the #1 all-time answerer.
Yeah.
And it drove my consultancy business for 2 years.
Right.
Because it was driving people to my blog, and people were continuing to read from my blog. So I've done this kind of stuff before, but I don't know how to do the research that you're talking about without using. So I'm repeating myself now, and it's been 3 hours. I need to stop talking.
I would say one quick thing though. You got to kind of choose between two roads with that email course.
Yeah.
Whether you're going to make it an email course specifically to people who are wanting to learn RabbitMQ, so it's going to give them the basics of messaging from a RabbitMQ perspective, and then lead into your RabbitMQ
course.
No,
that's the wrong course. The right course is This is an introduction to improving your application architecture by using messaging patterns. And toward the end of it, it turns into, as I talk about messaging patterns on the server side, then it branches into RabbitMQ, and oh, by the way, here's
See,
at the end of it.
that second one, I think is a tougher sell because you have to sell them on messaging and then on a specific platform to use RabbitMQ and then on your course.
Everybody wants to improve their application architecture.
But those people, so they're at a different stage than the people who, they're not actively searching for improving their application architecture. Like, there's very few people that are like, man, I need to Google today on how to improve my application architecture. Like, it's going to catch their eye, but they're not ready. They're not looking for a solution to that problem necessarily. But you could still sell them on it and convince them that they need it.
Well,
It's just a harder sell than someone who says, man, I need to learn RabbitMQ, and then they find your email course and they sign up for free, and then they're like, oh, this is awesome, and they're already on the path. They're already looking for RabbitMQ solutions. So to me, the second one, the RabbitMQ specific email course, is an easier sell. It's just fewer people, so it's more targeted.
You'll end up getting a lot more people on the first course, but your conversion rate will be a lot lower.
Yeah.
So it could, it probably, at best it'll probably be a wash. I would actually kind of think that John's right on this and that you might end up.
No. After hearing you say that, John, I agree with you.
Yeah, the more steps you have to walk people, every step you're going to lose 80 or 90% of people. So,
but write blog posts about improving your application architecture, and when you write the blog post about it, mention that messaging is a good way to do it, and then mention you have a free course that teaches them how to use RabbitMQ, because then that's going to, at least, it's a self-filtering process, and then they'll, if they're interested, and then you'll still be able to promote that. But I think if you have a very specific free email course on RabbitMQ, and very specifically target that.
Right. The top of your funnel is broad when it's on your blog. You don't want the top of you're widening the funnel in your email course.
Right.
Which may not be all that productive.
Yeah, some of the things I think about in content marketing is I'm going to attract you to my blog based on what you think you want, and then I'm going to teach you what you actually need to know.
Right.
Because people are searching for what they think they want, but it was kind of I guess I first got that idea when I read that The Millionaire Fast Lane. When that's basically how he started his book. He was like, you see, I named this book this because this is what you think you want, but then I'm gonna do a bait and switch and teach you what you actually should know. Because no one's searching on on what I'm actually going to tell you about, but you're the right kind of person if you're looking for the other. So.
Right. So Derek, if you go to buzzsumo.com, there's oh look, Watch Me Code is actually up there.
Yeah, it is number 3 or 4 for RabbitMQ.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, microservices with RabbitMQ and Docker. That's probably a book. That looks like a book.
No, that's a lengthy blog post.
Okay.
I've been seeing that one on Twitter for weeks.
Can you get mentioned in there?
Can you do a better article?
Oh yeah.
Not specifically on Docker because I don't use Docker. Docker is one of those technologies where everybody claims that they love it, but nobody can actually use it in production because once you try to put it in production, the hoops you have to jump through to make it run are just ridiculous.
Dude, write that article.
So somebody else already did, and it was a freaking hilarious article.
How to use RabbitMQ with PHP is up on SitePoint.
Yep.
And that's one of the top ones. You could do that with JavaScript or even Ruby. Of course, yeah. I'm pretty exhausted.
Okay.
Yeah, so am I. I really do need to go. I have to go pick up my son in about 25 minutes.
All right, should we do our thoughts for the day and then call it?
Yeah. My thought for the week is find your focus. I have 2. Find your focus, because I've been floundering for so long, and I've been so unfocused with Watch Me Code and consulting and Signal Leaf. And now that I've dropped Signal Leaf, I'm realizing just how unfocused I was, and it scares the hell out of me right now, which is why we've had a 3-hour conversation today. And then the other one is to remember that that success is built upon the massive pile of failure. The knowledge that I am standing on top of a relatively small hill right now compared to somebody else's more sorry, let me rephrase that. The knowledge that I am standing on top of a hill right now compared to where I was 3 years ago is only because I know how many failures I've had in the last 3 years and how I've learned and grown through those failures. It scares the crap out of me when I think about this at a large scale, because the vast majority of businesses, like 80% of businesses, fail within 3 years, and then another 80% of that fail within the next 2 or 3 years or something like that. And so I'm staring at Signal Leaf having failed within 3 years, looking at coming up on 3 years of Watch Me Code, although not really. I guess if you count the rebirth of Watch Me Code 1 year, year and a half. So I'm constantly looking for these points of failure and wondering what's going to fail next, and it scares the hell out of me, which is why I want to refocus and move forward and do better. So there's my thoughts for the week. Find your focus and remember that success is built on the back of 1,000 failures.
Mine's actually really similar to yours. I was just listening to Smart Passive Income podcast today, and he had a guest on it, and the guest said, failure, the only thing that's guaranteed is failure. And he's saying that in reference to entrepreneurship. And I thought that was an interesting phrase, and that's so true. And when you think about it, like if you know that up front, and that the only thing guaranteed is failure, that you're absolutely going to face failure, it's going to happen, then you can prepare for it a little bit better and understand that is not something to avoid, that you just got to pass through it and embrace it. And so I think what you said is correct. You build success is built on this pile of failure. There's a bunch of dead bodies, and that's how you become the king of the hill, as you're standing on top of those dead bodies of all these failed projects and mistakes that you made. And so the sooner you make the mistakes, don't try to avoid them. The sooner you make them, the sooner you find the things that are not mistakes, and there's just no shortcut to that.
Right.
Yeah, mine's going to be start simple and only add complexity when you see what's actually working with simplicity. Because it's really easy to get sucked into the shiny, a whole brand new, system of the week kind of thing, and
right.
And you see how could this possibly not work? It's so beautiful, this tripwire, and it just makes so much sense. Well, you've got 30 points of failure now instead of 3.
Yeah.
So.
And the first one doesn't work, and now you got that one working. Well, the next one doesn't work.
Or they all leak, right? I mean, you've got 30 points that are all suboptimal, and now where do you even start? So.
Yep. All right, guys. Same bad time, same bad channel.
Yep.
All righty. See ya. Bye.
We'll have to reschedule Derek for the